The Legend of the Ninja from the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, Entering the Temple and Lowering Your Hands. Roar. Mingshan raised his hand to speed up the ninjutsu seal as he roared. TSK, even if I'm being forced, I have to try to activate it. He clasped his hands together while cursing. Pa. Kuana Yuoshu. Mingshan shouted, but, puff, ha. Apart from this shout, nothing happened. Boom. Roar. A strong airflow blew away the purple mist that filled the surroundings, revealing Kong's roar. Why is there no movement? Mingshan looked at his hand in confusion, feeling guilty. The out-of-control Jinchuriki didn't care what he was doing and rushed towards the target with the momentum of the wind. Be careful. Dilu shouted, and he was about to approach Mingshan with the others. Run away. After hearing Dilu's warning, Mingshan quickly raised his head and looked at the opposite side and found that he was rushing towards him like thunder. Damn it, I can only gamble. Seeing this, Mingshan secretly gritted his teeth and made a fierce move. After completing the seal at the fastest speed, he actually raised one hand and aimed it at the young man. Just when he was about to slap his claws on his head, he resolutely roared. Kuan. Ruayu Chashao. Between life and death, Mingshan looked directly at the attack of the Jinchuriki and only forced himself to retreat half a step, allowing the sharp claws to tear and scratch his chest, leaving bloody marks. Bang. Crackle. From the gap between the two of them, a simple and vicissitudes of life giant hand suddenly jumped out, blocking Mingshan and the young man. This is. Everyone present was stunned when they saw this sudden and shocking scene, and even Dilu was no exception. That hand. Guji had opened his eyes wide at this moment, looking carefully at the rough green giant hand. There was a word ZUO written on the palm. It was even bigger than the boy, and it was so majestic that it shocked people. Is this the true power of the first generation of adults would escape recorded in the King Wang secret record? What made him even more unbelievable was that Mingshan could actually, in such a short time, bang, cap. Mingshan directly used the wooden hand to cover the whole person of Kong. At this moment, the airflow was extremely violent and rushed everywhere. Rumble. At this moment, thunder also sounded in the sky with the roar of the giant hand. Boom. Cap. Lightning struck and fell straight down from above. Under the reflection of Baiyao, Mingshan's back at this moment, standing aside with the giant hand, was like an eternal legend. After a moment, just as everyone was still trembling with fear, they heard a thud, and Mingshan actually shook and fell to the ground and fell into a coma together with Kong, who was covered by the giant hand. Mingshan. Seeing him fall down, Guji and Yishan hurriedly ran to him, and Dilu also shouted loudly for the monks to help. When everyone was sitting in a mess, the long-lasting change at the main entrance was forcibly suppressed by Mingshan and stopped abruptly. Damn, who is that kid? TSK, how could Kong be suppressed so easily by him? I don't know, but his ninjutsu seems to be the long-lost would release in Konoha village. What, would release? On the hillside far away from the fire temple, two women and one man were looking down at everything that happened in the open space of the temple under their feet, and they were discussing it. Humph, would release, so what? It's no big deal. HMM. Hearing this, the three of them turned around. Tada. Although we were accidentally disturbed by this kid, we already know the result we want. A man with a bamboo hat and white hair approached the three of them with a staff in his hand and continued indifferently, let's go. Hey, are you just leaving like that, Lord Bully too? Don't forget, we are just here for testing today. After I tricked the kid out last night, I had already used another secret technique in advance. When he wakes up this time, he will immediately forget how he met us. Dilu can't find any clues, even if he wants to investigate. TSK, you are really cruel, Lord Bully too. Don't talk so much nonsense, let's go, we have something to do next. Understood. After the three of them answered in unison, they followed the man and left the hillside, walking slowly in the wind and rain. The next day, although the rain was not as strong as yesterday, it still kept falling. Mengshan opened his eyes slightly, and there was a bright light that was dazzling. He subconsciously wanted to raise his hand to block it, but unexpectedly, he just stretched out his arm, and he grimaced in pain. "Hey, Mengshan, are you awake?" A very familiar voice sounded in his ears. Fang Zhu. Mengshan heard his voice, and turned to the side to find that he was sitting by his bed. "Great, I'll go call Yishan and Guji seniors over." "What's wrong with me? You fainted after you subdued Khan yesterday." Fang Zhu said, got up and left, without chatting with him anymore, and strode straight out after opening the door. "TSK, no way." Mengshan barely raised his back with his sore arms, leaned on the bed and panted, thinking to himself, I didn't expect that launching that kind of ninjutsu would be so bad, and I fainted after using it. What's going on?" Tap, tap. Just as he was thinking hard, there was a sound of footsteps outside the door, and it could be judged that there were quite a lot of people. "Mengshan, are you awake?" As soon as he opened the door, he heard the captain's voice. He looked up, and found that the whole team had come. "Captain Yishan, old man, Takuno, you guys." Takuno walked straight to Mengshan's bed, took out a small bottle of something from his waist bag, and handed it to him. "Mengshan, this is for you." "What is this?" "The special soldier pills made in the fire temple, used to replenish physical strength and maintain chakra consumption. The effect is very good." Takuno said casually. "Master Dilu said that this is a special gift to thank you for your help yesterday." "TSK, specially made, isn't it still a soldier pill?" Mengshan seemed to be extremely hypocritically moved. "Fuck, why is the dead bald donkey using the same routine as the old guy from the snow country? Will you lose a piece of meat if you give me some of the believer's incense money?" While cursing secretly, he did not forget to stop and refuse. No, I don't want to be greedy for his reward. Please help me return this to Master Dilu." "Mengshan, you don't have to be so polite to refuse." Yishan said, "Take it. This is also a kind gesture from Dilu." "Captain, this, alright." Although he said this politely, in his heart he was thinking, I really don't fucking care about this thing. Chapter 202 The history of the main entrance. "Are you okay?" Guji walked up to him, and took a look at the injured parts, chest and shoulder blades. "How is the wound?" "Not bad." Mengshan nodded, and said with a smile, "It's no big deal. You really don't want to live." Fang Zhu suddenly criticized him seriously. "Why are you stupid enough to rush forward alone?" Mengshan was a little surprised and didn't react. "What? You? Can't you wait until everyone is here before acting together?" Fang Zhu scolded him. "You have to get yourself covered in injuries." Mengshan heard this, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he had to say to him patiently, "Under the circumstances at that time, even if we waited for Captain Yishan and the others to come together, it wouldn't work." He took the water cup handed over by Fang Zhu casually. "The reason why that kid lost control and ran away is not so simple, and it can't be easily dealt with by ordinary means alone." "Why?" Just when Fang Zhu was a little confused. "Well, it's hard to explain at this moment. I'll tell you slowly later." Mengshan said, and was about to stand up and stretch his muscles. "Hey." Seeing Mengshan like this, Fang Zhu quickly stretched out his left hand to support him. "Slow down. Your injuries." "Hey, I told you, it's okay." Gently pushed away Fang Zhu's helping hand, and Mengshan shook his shoulders, and he was able to move freely. "Look. Hey. What's going on?" Takuno was surprised to see him really waving his arms. Subconsciously, Takuno turned his head to look at the others, and found that Yishan and Guji were also looking at him. They looked at each other, and couldn't help but look at each other, wondering secretly, what's wrong with him? Why did Mengshan recover so quickly? The old man hid in an inconspicuous place behind him, frowning and thinking secretly. According to what Dilu said before, Mengshan's injury will not be able to get out of bed and walk normally without 2 or 3 days of recuperation. Yishan was suspicious. "He is. Great." Before the others could see the clue, Fang Zhu grinned and shouted happily, after checking his whole body, "Mengshan, you are really fine. Great." As he said that, he moved his hands and patted Mengshan's arms hard. Hiss. Mingshan took a breath. You pat me lightly, it will kill you. He rubbed his arms with a grin. My hands are still sore and swollen. This is not happy. Fang Zhu said, scratching his head. I'll go to the kitchen to get you some food. Wait. After that, without waiting for him to say anything, he left the room first to get busy. TSK, I will be pissed off to death by this fat guy sooner or later. Mingshan smiled bitterly and muttered in his heart. Let's all go out too. Yishan said to the other teammates, since you feel that you are in better spirits now, let's gather at the main entrance of the fire temple at around 1 PM. Hey, Captain Yishan, actually, Mingshan said anxiously when he heard the captain's order and that they would have to delay for half a day before setting off. We can leave the fire temple right now. I already. No. Yishan flatly refused him. Mingshan, you should have a good rest. We don't need this half day. But Captain, this. Okay, we are all grown men. Don't be so nagging. After deciding to gather the team at the main entrance of the fire temple and set off, they all left the room one after another. Really, everyone? After they all left, Mingshan shook his head speechlessly and changed his clothes, muttering to himself, you all treat me as a patient. After about half a cup of tea, Fang Zhu quickly brought food to Mingshan. The two chatted in the room. Mingshan told Fang Zhu, who had just arrived, what happened yesterday morning. He also briefly mentioned his experience with the young man. I really didn't expect that. Fang Zhu smacked his lips and took another bite of the apple. Ah. Why are you sighing? Mingshan also had something to eat and looked at him strangely. Darn. Who is it? Fang Zhu had just opened his mouth slightly. After hearing the knock on the door, he immediately changed the subject and shouted outside. It's me, Master Dilu. The two were startled and wondered why he came here. Fang Zhu quickly put the apple on the table, ran to open the door, and welcomed the man in respectfully. Master Dilu, what's wrong with you? Mingshan just wanted to say something, but Dilu turned his head to look at Fang Zhu who was standing beside him and said, I have something I want to say to Mingshan alone. Oh, okay. Fang Zhu heard that and tactfully took his bitten apple from the table, then walked out, closing the door behind him. What's wrong, Master Dilu? I have something I want to ask you. I wonder if it's convenient for you. Please go ahead. Are you a bloodline ninja from Konoha village? No. Then how did you? I got this power by chance. It's not something I was born with. I see. After asking clearly, Dilu said to himself thoughtfully, it seems that it is a coincidence that you were able to use wood release to suppress Kang's rampage this time. Huh. Mingshan looked up at Dilu, puzzled. What do you mean by that? In fact, when Kang first came to the fire temple 6 years ago, a situation like yesterday happened once, and it happened briefly last year as well, but that time only half of the gate was destroyed. What, half? Mingshan was stunned when he heard this, and then he suddenly realized what we saw at the main entrance that day. Yes. Dilu closed his eyes and nodded. It was caused by Kang's out of control rampage. Although that time was not very serious, it almost affected the villages around the fire temple. I didn't expect that kid. Mingshan sighed, and then took the opportunity to ask Dilu, is he also a Jinkraki? Jinkraki? Dilu looked at Mingshan solemnly and shook his head. No. Then why does he have that special chakra in his body? Mingshan asked Dilu. I don't understand either. Dilu told the past in detail. When Kang was first sent to the temple, compared with ordinary children from ordinary families, there was nothing particularly strange. Oh. Until one night. Dilu recalled to him seriously. I happened to be out on business that day and had not been in the temple. When I was talking to someone, I suddenly received an urgent call for help from other people in the temple. His eyes showed nostalgia. At that time, after I roughly learned about the situation in the temple, I immediately put aside the things at hand and rushed back to the fire temple anxiously. But, just what? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Salt Water. At this point, Dilu sighed. I just didn't expect that I would see such a nightmare scene. Nightmare scene? Mingshan asked subconsciously. Was he so out of control at that time? Not only was the iron wall of the main gate that had never been broken by anyone damaged, but even many halls in the temple were affected and the damage was very serious. The fire temple was almost destroyed because of this. Dilu frowned. If I hadn't happened to meet you this time, I'm afraid that tragic situation would have happened again. Hey, actually, seriously speaking, I was just dang. Master Dilu. HMM. Dilu turned around and asked outside the door, what's the matter? The monk has something to discuss with you. I know, I'll go to him later. Okay. After reporting the matter, the visitor took his leave and left to do his own thing. Master Dilu is really a busy man. You just sat here for a while and someone came to see you. Mingshan smiled at him. No way, there's always something to do. Dilu was used to it. What were you going to say? Nothing. Mingshan said, Lord Dilu has something to do, so go and do it first. Okay. Dilu stood up. Before I came, Yishan told me that you will leave the fire temple in the afternoon. If you have time in the future, you are welcome to come here at any time. Okay, I will definitely find time to visit you in the future. After the two finished chatting, Dilu also said goodbye and left, leaving Mingshan alone in the house. It seems that, although Kang is not a Jinkriki, he must have some kind of connection with Naruto. Mingshan shook his head and thought to himself that he would investigate it carefully when he had the chance in the future. Soon, it was noon in a blink of an eye. At about 1 o'clock, the drizzle stopped and the sky cleared up. Dilu and two young monks stood outside the damaged main gate and said goodbye to Mingshan and Captain Yishan. There are still many things to deal with in the temple, so I can only take you here, Dilu said, taking a bag from the little monk beside him. There are some dry food in it, you can take it on the road. Yes, thank you. Yishan nodded and agreed to accept it without being pretentious. Do you want to stay here? Mingshan looked up at Fang Zhu who was standing next to Dilu and asked. Yeah. Fang Zhu nodded with a smile and adjusted his glasses frame. The fire temple is the only ninja temple in the land of fire. I want to learn and comprehend more here and leave after a while. I have already made an agreement with Lord Dilu. Yeah, no problem. Dilu nodded in agreement at the right time. Fang Zhu is just a volunteer in the temple, not an official trainee monk. It doesn't matter how long you want to stay. Okay. Mingshan saw that he had made up his mind, so he didn't say anything more. He just secretly said, hey, don't really become a monk when the time comes. Goodbye, see you later. Well, have a good trip, everyone. Just as they were leaving the fire temple, somewhere in the northern border, boom. A series of detonating talismans flashed and exploded in the forest, stirring up clouds of dust. Go. Swish. Boom. Two seriously injured Konoha ninjas, back to back, holding broken kunai, confronted the Iwagakure troops that surrounded them. Damn it, the captain has died in battle. I'm going to take his place. One of the Konoha ninjas gritted his teeth and said with hatred, just as he was about to charge forward. Before he could risk his life, his companion took out two smoke bombs from his waist bag and threw them hard on the ground, which exploded directly into thick fog and blocked the line of sight between the enemy and us. Bang, bang. Oh no, those two guys from Konoha threw smoke bombs again. TSK, it's really troublesome. HMPH, let's just use shuriken to throw around. Okay. Whoosh, whoosh, ding, ding. The two people in the smoke barely blocked it with kunai, driving their wounded bodies. What are you doing? TSK, if you want revenge, you have to wait until we are out of danger. The companion panted and said, then raised his hand and shouted, fire style, ghost lantern. After forming a tiger seal, he made countless fireballs with the appearance of Prajna appear around the two people. Whoosh, whoosh. The next second, he would drive the fireball to launch disorderly attacks around. Let's go now. His companion pulled his hand, and without saying anything, he pulled him to quickly evacuate the place. Swish, swish. Two after images wrapped in a little mist quickly evacuated the place and fled. They want to run. Quick, let's chase them. Don't let them escape. Under the scorching sun, the team jumped and ran in the dense forest. After bidding farewell to the monks of the fire temple, Mingshan and Yishan and the others sped up their pace. Swish, swish, when passing across roads on the way north. Hey, everyone. Takuno, who was at the back of the team, suddenly caught a glimpse of something and shouted to the captain and the others. What's wrong? Several people stopped between the trees and turned their eyes to look at him. Look there. Takuno pointed to a crooked banyan tree. That person seems to be. Let's go and take a look. Okay. Whoosh, whoosh. Soon, the four of them came to the tree. They looked at the ninja lying at the root of the tree. It's Yanshu. Yishan suddenly said in surprise. Why is he here? Yanshu, wake up. Yanshu. Mingshan didn't understand and turned to look at Yishan. He is one of the members stationed in the North Border outpost. Yishan explained. When he was not patrolling the North Border, he was my partner in the mission before. He gently patted his face with the back of his hand, trying to wake him up. Why is Yanshu here? And he is injured all over. Did something happen over there? Guji guessed at this time. It's very likely. Mingshan agreed with the old man's opinion, with a solemn expression. Takuno took off the bamboo tube from his waist and poured clear water on Yanshu's face with dark circles under his eyes. Cough. The clear water dripped along his fingertips, and under the wet touch, it took a long time for him to wake up from his coma with a slight frown. As soon as he opened his eyes, Yanshu first instinctively shielded the strong light with his hands, and then slowly woke up, wondering, I am. You're awake, Yanshu. Yishan saw him wake up, and asked with concern. You are, hiss. Yanshu saw Yishan, and was about to say something, but a piercing pain attacked his whole body. What's going on? Mingshan saw the sweat dripping from his forehead, and was very puzzled. Guji suddenly noticed that there was blood oozing from the side of Yanshu's thigh, and hurriedly pulled him in front of him. Hiss. Takuno only glanced at his back and immediately gasped. How could this happen? Chapter 204, Rush to the North. Everyone was shocked to see that his back was pierced with all kinds of sharp shurikens, and blood was still flowing down. Yanshu, hurry up, open your mouth, and take this hemostatic pill. Yishan hurriedly took out a small box from his arms, poured out a brown pill, handed it to his mouth, and slowly fed it to him to stop the bleeding. Yanshu opened his mouth with great effort, bit the pill and swallowed it. After swallowing it for a while, Mingshan helped to pull out the ninja tools behind Yanshu one by one. Hiss. Yanshu felt the sting of the sharp blades on his back. His face was pale. He gritted his teeth and injured silently, without shouting, and after all the ninja tools were removed, Guji also hurriedly took out the bandage to apply medicine for him. What happened on the border? After Yishan and others helped him clean up, he continued to ask, Yanshu. Yishan, there are a large number of Iwagakure troops invading the border now. Yanshu spoke slowly. What, Iwagakure? Takuno and the others all changed their expressions when they heard this. TSK, the people of the land of earth would actually choose this time to attack our country. Yishan frowned deeply. Yanshu, have you sent a message to the village? We have sent a falcon to report to the village. If nothing unexpected happens, it should arrive in the next 2 days. Yanshu, supported by Takuno and Kosuke on both sides, barely stood up. Captain, what should we do? Takuno asked him. Yishan did not answer immediately, but walked a few steps away alone. After pondering for a while, he made up his mind and said, Mr. Guji, please take Yanshu and retreat to the nearest fire temple to recuperate. Then Captain Yishan, you. Tomorrow, Takuno and I will continue to rush to the border together. What? Yanshu heard him anxiously. No, Yishan, there are too many enemies in the north now. If you go at this time, you can only. No. Yishan shook his head at him. Yanshu, behind us is our home. Turning around, although the far country is big, where can we retreat to even if we run away? He looked up at the scorching sun. Sir Hokage is now dead, and now we can only rely on ourselves to protect Konoha. The captain is right. Takuno nodded in agreement. Captain. Seeing that he was so determined, Guji could only open his mouth and hesitate to speak. But tomorrow, seeing that the old man was so worried, He took the initiative to persuade him. Old man, don't worry, we are going to slow down the enemy's progress, not to go to the border to die. Tomorrow. Mr. Guji, I'll leave the salt water to you. After being persuaded by the three people, Guji no longer insisted on his own opinion and finally nodded and agreed. Okay, you must be more careful when you go north. Okay. After a few final exchanges with him, the three immediately set off and jumped to their destination, the northern border. Swish, swish. Watching the few people disappear from the spot and leave, Guji sighed, took off the iron pot on his body, and squatted down to carry the salt water himself. Hey senior, put me down. Yanshu said, lying on his back. I can. It's okay, just take a good rest. Anyway, it's only a few steps away from the fire temple. But, when Yanshu tried to argue a few more words, Guji just smiled and shook his head silently. Sorry, don't say that. We are all friends from the same village. Pay attention and hold on to me. Okay. Swish. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in a damp tunnel somewhere in Konoha. Danzo walked in front with a cane, and behind him was a young man with a very sallow face, wearing a rain-hidden forehead protector on his head, following him step by step, with a very respectful expression. This time, you will be assigned to the rain-hidden village. You will have to work harder, and take more care. Danzo still explained things to his subordinates with a blank face as usual. I understand. Please don't worry, Danzo-sama. I know what I should do next. Well, I have always been very confident in your ability to do things, Tatsuji. Then, Danzo-sama, next. Swish, swish. 2 people in black robes rushed directly behind them and knelt on one knee. Who? Just as he drew out his weapon and was about to turn around to be alert for the newcomers. Oh, you're here. Danzo spoke at the right time, turning his back to the 2 uninvited guests. Yes, Danzo-sama. Upon hearing this, Tatsuji put down his guard and put away his weapons. He looked at the 2 people who were half kneeling on the ground for a long time without saying a word and bowed to Danzo tactfully and said, Danzo-sama, I will go to carry out the mission first. Yes. After Danzo nodded, he disappeared in an instant. Master Danzo, this is the latest information from the north. One of the men who was kneeling on one knee took the initiative to report after Tatsuji left. He took out a scroll from his arms and respectfully presented it to him. Please take a look. Danzo casually reached out, took the scroll, and spread it in his hand. After reading it for a long time, he sneered. HMPH, the actions of Iwagakure are as expected. He slowly put away the scroll he had read, and then suddenly, a small flame suddenly appeared out of thin air, and quickly burned all the information. Is there any news from Terei? After burning the information, Danzo casually asked his subordinates, send them to search for Tsuchigumo Hotaru. It's about time for them to send back a message. Not yet, but it should be soon. Well, pass on my order, let the root. Swish. Whoosh. At this moment, outside a sentry post on the border, thick smoke was billowing. Ahem. A Konoha ninja with wounds all over his body, covered the part of his left shoulder that was pierced by a kunai with his hand, breathing heavily, and looking around vigilantly at the enemies around him. HMPH. Kit. A ninja with a body as big as a rock and blue patterns painted under his eyes walked out from the circle of Iwagakure that surrounded him, and said to him, just surrender obediently, and I can spare your life. What a pity. Ahem. He just said half a sentence, and then he started coughing. It took him a while to calm down and said, in my dictionary, there is no word for surrender. TSK. The companion standing next to the tall ninja frowned and said to him coldly, HMPH, you are still so stubborn when you are about to die. Oh, ahem. Hearing what the Iwagakure said, he couldn't help laughing. His throat felt sweet and he coughed up blood again. Your teammate has died in the battle. Wenya was puzzled. Do you think you can still fight us by yourself? How is that possible? He looked down at his empty waste bag. Since he covered Yanshu's departure last night, he had already run out of ammunition and food. He had nothing left. He only had a half-broken ninja sword in his hand. I'm very sorry, brothers. My wife is sick recently. I have to make time to take care of her at night. I can't write too much. I'm really sorry. Chapter 205 Air Raid. Heh, I can barely even stand now. How can I fight against you? He said to himself very tiredly, his body shaking violently, but even in such a situation, he still did not forget to hold the broken sword tightly, and said teasingly, I'm dead this time. TSK, are all the people in Konoha idiots? I'll ask you one last time for when do you intend to surrender or not? The bearded rock ninja standing opposite him said, and raised his hand with 3 sharp shurikens between his fingers, with murderous intent. Ordinary ninjas like us with mediocre abilities will be of little use when faced with an invasion of elite ninjas from other countries. He seemed not to hear the rock ninja shout. He just wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and muttered to himself. At this moment, his legs began to shake uncontrollably. With a thud, he could no longer support himself, and half knelt on the ground. Ahem. No matter how hard I try, there's no chance of winning. I know my own weight best. Even if I die here, I won't delay your pace at all. Hey, what are you mumbling about? Are you begging for mercy? Of course. The rock ninja named when turned to look at him, and shook his head. TSK. But despite this, I have to pick up my weapon, and continue to fight with you. He gritted his teeth and growled, it has nothing to do with whether I can win or not, but I have to stand here and fight with you. He raised his hand tremblingly and aimed his weapon at the rock ninja. Even if I can only hold on for a few minutes, I don't want to be a coward for the rest of my life. HMPH, put away your inexplicable words. He swung his arm, hurry up and give it to me. Before he finished speaking, he simply swung his weapon. Whoosh, whoosh. The shuriken was thrown out quickly and headed straight for him. Hey, this damn weather. It rained just in the morning, and it cleared up again at noon. The sun is really dazzling. Unexpectedly, at this critical moment of life and death, he only looked up at the sky, and in his heart he only complained about the weather at the moment. Just as he was about to slowly lean forward to make the final charge to die. Ding. Dong. Dong dong. Several shurikens were thrown at him, and one of them was knocked off its trajectory by a kunai that appeared out of nowhere and flew straight past him. Ippo was very surprised to see his shuriken being knocked off its course. His other 2 shuriken were not much better and were blocked by a heavy wooden shield that fell from the sky. Who? Ippo glanced around angrily. I'm here. Hearing this, the ninjas from both Konoha and Iwagakure who were present all raised their heads and looked up at the sky. He looked up with difficulty and saw a seaweed head hovering above him. Behind it, there were steel wings that were stretching and fluttering. He asked weakly, who are you? Thank you for your hard work, brother. The man saw that he was asking questions and said very kindly, just when he was about to introduce himself, who are you? The Iwagakure shouting question came from below. I'm a member of the patrol team sent by Konoha this time, Ito Mingshin. He had to pause the conversation with his brother first, looked down at the rock ninja, and replied coldly, if you don't want to die, go back to the land of Earth and play in the mud as soon as possible. What a joke. He stared at the man in the sky and cursed, just a little brat dares to speak so arrogantly. Just as he was about to continue to mock and provoke him to land, Mingshin raised his hands without hesitation, aimed at the circle of rock ninjas, and shouted, would release, cutting technique. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Rows of sharp wooden thorns spewed out from Mingshin's palms and attacked the crowd on the right. What is that? A rock ninja in the circle looked at the long thorns running fast and getting closer and closer to him. Puff. Swish. As soon as it touched, it was directly inserted into the body of the rock ninja, and after growing wildly, it cruelly pierced out of the body. Ah. Afterwards, all those who were suddenly pierced by his wooden thorn screamed without exception and died. Asshole. When was shocked and angry. While jumping to avoid the attack of wooden thorns falling from the sky, he shouted to the bearded rock ninja, counterattack. Here it comes. The rock ninja who was also dodging the wooden thorns heard the words and quickly flashed to his side. The 2 of them raised their hands and made seals at the same time, then slapped the ground vigorously and shouted, Earth escape, return of Earth and land. Amidst the roars, the land in front of the 2 was quickly turned over to reveal a long, wide and thick stone slab. Dong, dong dong. It only took a moment for the wooden thorns to pierce the stone slab. TSK. Mingshin saw that his offensive was blocked, and he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He made a seal and said to himself, then I'll see how you defend against this move. Whoosh. After blowing the whistle, several identical clones flapped their wings and flew over from all directions. They hovered over the crowd. As soon as they appeared, they began to make hand seals in an orderly manner. Quick, everyone. When Ya looked up at him making hand seals in the air, quickly activate your earth escape technique to resist this kid, and then, before he could finish shouting anxiously to the familiar crowd, wood escape technique, grafting technique. The original body and the 4 clones raised their hands and pointed at the Iwagakure below, shouting, whoosh, 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 ah. Many Iwagakure ninjas waited until the wooden spikes were about to fall before they came to their senses and tried to raise their hands to make hand seals to defend themselves. The result is predictable. None of them were spared and were pierced through and died while screaming. Only some Iwagakure ninjas who reacted quickly began to raise their hands and make hand seals to resist the attack of wood escape technique. As soon as when Ya began to warn them loudly, one after another, earth walls broke out from the ground. While the Iwagakure was busy launching earth escape to defend against the wooden thorns, the master took the opportunity to slide down from top to bottom to the seriously injured brother under the tree and carried him on his back. Hey, kid. He lay on Mingshan's back with heavy eyelids. Why are you? If you have anything to say, it's not too late to talk after we are out of danger, brother. Mingshan turned his head to persuade him. Okay, you are right. After flying for a while, when he was far away from the encirclement, he found a treetop and landed steadily, putting the brother down. Not good. As soon as he put the man down, Mingshan found that he had fallen into a coma, and the broken weapon in his hand had fallen off and disappeared at some point. Brother. Mingshan shook him gently and called him, and took out a small glass bottle from his waist bag, opened the cork, opened his mouth, poured a brown pill into it, and then closed it again, to help the brother swallow it. After just a few breaths, he frowned slightly and responded again. Mingshan breathed a sigh of relief when he saw this, and thought to himself, fortunately, I greeted the captain and went ahead, flying here, otherwise. As he was thinking about it, the old man had slowly woken up. Chapter 206 I call you husband. What am I doing? He asked himself blankly at first, and then when he saw Mingshan, he recalled what happened before. He was about to say in surprise, Iwagakure. We have successfully escaped, don't worry, brother. Mingshan smiled and comforted him. What? Hearing Mingshan say this, his whole body trembled, and he struggled to get up again. Hey. Mingshan saw him like this, and quickly held him down. Don't move, you are. I have to go back. What? Mingshan was puzzled. Why are you doing this? The captain and that annoying nagging ghost died in the battle, and I was the only one who escaped alone. He pulled out the kunai on his waist with great pain. You want me to go back to the village like this? I'm sorry, I really can't do it. Brother, you. Mingshan was about to give some advice, but suddenly, whoosh, whoosh, be careful. He didn't have time to warn Mingshan, and after shouting, bang, he kicked him off the tree with one foot. Boom, boom, boom. At the moment, when Mingshan was kicked away, 4 or 5 shurikens rushed directly and hit his vital parts. Ahem. After being wounded, he was in a trance, his consciousness was a little scattered, and he collapsed softly. Mingshan saw that he risked his life to block the attack of hidden weapons to save himself, and his pupils unconsciously filled with murderous intent. TSK, let that kid escape. 2 rock ninjas quietly and quickly evacuated behind a tree. One of them said to his companion, let's go, let's meet up with the main force. Okay. The other nodded in agreement. Originally, they were assigned the task of searching and detecting the enemy in the forest, but they happened to run into Mingshan and his companions who just landed here. Swish, swish. When they were about to leave the scene. Yesterday we went to a nearby village to kill a few civilians, and then there was no other gain. The two chatted in a rather disappointing tone. We are so unlucky this time. TSK. Before he could finish his complaints, a sharp sword suddenly appeared and pierced his throat. His companions beside him were shocked and were about to speed up their pace to escape. Bang! A leg suddenly shot out from under him and kicked him in the abdomen. Cough. Blood spurted out from his throat. The kick was very strong, like a cannonball, and it hit his back straight. Swish. Before the rock ninja could react, Mingshan was like a ghost and pulled out the Kusanagi sword stuck in his throat. A dazzling light flashed through his neck. It was impossible to describe the sword's momentum. It was as if the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was aroused. Except for that line, there was nothing else. Under the direct sunlight, it finally broke through and disappeared in the sky. Dang. The head and body of the person were separated. The rock ninja didn't know until he died how they were approached and killed by that kid. With a plop, the bodies of the two fell to the ground. HMPH, those who kill will be killed. Mingshan's eyes were sinister, and he looked down upon the two corpses on the ground, as if they were ants. With a swish, he quickly spread his steel wings and flew back to his brother. At this time, the rough treetops were already soaked with his blood and flowed all over the ground. Mingshan hurriedly flew back, picked him up, and checked the new wounds. Suddenly, his face became extremely ugly, and he cursed, "Damn it." Cough. His eyes gradually lost their light, and new blood flowed from the corners of his mouth, dripping down his chin. Mingshan saw this, and was about to take out the medicine from his waist bag when a bloody hand suddenly covered the back of his hand. Huh. Mingshan raised his eyes, and looked at him. "No. Don't waste your time saving me, little brother," he said hoarsely. Thank you. It's okay, brother. I know very well what my current situation is." He smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Little brother, although it may be very sudden to say this, but I don't have time anymore. Can I ask you a favor? Please go ahead, brother." Mingshan looked at him sadly, knowing that he had some unfulfilled wishes. After driving away the rock ninja, "Please take me, the captain, and the nagging ghost back to the village for burial." Okay. Thank you, brother. There's nothing to thank me for, brother." Mingshan sighed helplessly, with sadness in his eyes. "Is this the final destination for us ninjas? It starts with a mission and ends with a mission." Brother. Mingshan helped him wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. "You have been busy dealing with the rock ninja, and I haven't asked you yet. What's your name?" "My name is Husband." Mingshan had a moment when he thought there might be something wrong with his ears, and subconsciously asked, brother, what did you say your name was?" "My name is Husband, and my last name is." Unfortunately, before he could tell his name clearly, he stopped talking and never had the chance to finish, staring blankly at the front. "Hey, brother, you should tell me your name clearly. It's not too late to close your eyes." Mingshan made a bitter face, and after shouting a few times, he had no choice but to close his eyes, thinking to himself, "Forget it. His full name should be registered on the attendance record, and I can go back and take a look. I can't take the bodies of several people back to the village and really write Husband on his tombstone." Boom. At this moment, there were bursts of violent explosions in the distance, rumbling. "Have Kuno and the others arrived too? They are pretty fast." Mingshan had just finished muttering when he suddenly heard it again in the northeast. Clang, clang. There was actually the sound of weapons fighting and friction. "That should be Captain Yishan." After a moment's hesitation, he said, "It's time for me to start." He raised his hands and quickly formed seals, shouting, "Would release, multiple wood clone technique." Instantly, he split into 7 or 8 wood clones. Swish, swish, swish. Mingshan assigned the clones to go in 2 groups to support his teammates. Then, next, Mingshan took a deep look at the direction he had just retreated, adjusted his steel wings, carried his husband's body on his back, and jumped down. Whoosh. He landed steadily under the roots of the tree and gently placed him against the tree trunk. "Brother, wait a little longer. I'll take you home after the work is done." As if he was talking to him, or to himself, his expression changed, and soon, he disappeared into the vast green field. "Just one person from Konoha beat us all so badly?" A short-haired girl standing at the edge of the perimeter looked at her fellow villagers who had been killed and injured. Her face was very dark and ugly. She gritted her teeth and said, "How abominable. There is no way." Wenya helped his injured companion up from the ground with a helpless look on his face. He looked around and sighed after seeing the 4 wooden clones that were now in tatters. "I didn't expect that Konoha would have such a difficult ninja." Thinking back to the previous battle, he still felt particularly aggrieved. It was not that the boy was too strong, but that the boy was too wretched. The 4 clones hovered in the air and used wood escape to attack, deliberately not landing. They spent a long time trying, and without counting the casualties, they barely managed to knock them down one by one. Chapter 207 Black Soil. E2. When something starts, there will always be some deviations. Stay calm. A very honest and gentle voice sounded in the girl's ears, persuading her. Really, Chitu, you mean that everything is difficult at the beginning? Heitu smiled teasingly, turned his head and glanced, and complained to the person standing next to him. Well, it's enough for you to know what I mean. How are the arrangements for the people we brought from the village? After leaving a group of people here, they have been dispersed to various places to support other places. Akatsuki reported the situation honestly, and then scratched his head. Now our main force is still busy attacking the small town very close to the border. I'm afraid it won't be able to be withdrawn for a while. But, speaking of this, Ippo was busy around a few people, helping his companions move the wounded, and interrupted them and said, Kuratsuchi, how did you convince that Sachikid-sama, and also withdraw a lot of ninjas from the village? When you mentioned this, Just as she was about to talk about this with Ippo and the others, Akatsuki suddenly raised her eyes and shifted her gaze, looking at a certain place in surprise, and exclaimed softly, "What's wrong?" When Yao and Kuratsuchi saw that he suddenly stopped talking, a little puzzled. "Look." Akatsuki pointed, and in the northwest of their field of vision, something was approaching quickly. "Who is that?" As if it looked familiar, he thought hard. "I think I've seen it somewhere before." When Ya recognized it at a glance, and said to everyone, "It's the guy who rescued the people before. He dared to come here alone." Upon hearing this, Kuratsuchi was full of fighting spirit. He picked up 3 shuriken from the ground, held them between his fingers, and jumped into the air, floating straight towards the person. "Hey, Kuratsuchi, you." When Ya saw that she was actually going to fight against the Konoha ninja alone in the air, and was afraid that something might go wrong, so he was anxious to dissuade her. "Don't worry." Akatsuki walked to Ya and patted his shoulder with his palm leaf fan to reassure him. Earth escape technique, light and heavy rock technique. After he also rose into the air, Akatsuki said to him, "I'll catch up with her." Then, he increased his flying speed, and chased after Kuratsuchi. Mingshin saw 2 people flying in the distance, one after the other. Fuck, there is actually such an ninjutsu? He was quite curious. How did they do it? He pondered for a moment. Could it be that it is like Gaara's sand, which can achieve the purpose of flying freely in the air by reducing its own weight? Whoosh, whoosh. Unfortunately, Mingshin didn't have time to think for a moment, and 3 shuriken came straight at him. Ding. Clang. Mingshin easily hovered in the air, swung his weapon, and blocked the shuriken one by one. "Hey, kid." Before the Kuratsuchi got close, he shouted at him, "You dared to kill and injure so many of our Iwagakure people. You are really brave." Wow. Wow. When the silver light of the water poured onto the wooden shield, it actually stirred up waves, forcing Mingshin to move slowly backwards in midair, and said in shock, "TSK, how big is the lung capacity of the little girl? How can the water pressure be so strong?" Swish. Crack. He immediately withstood the water attack of He2, and several wooden clones were directly split behind the shield, flying out quickly from both sides, holding swords and swimming straight at her. He2 saw the clones appearing on the left and right of the shield and attacking together, and he calmly stopped spraying water, and took the initiative to attack head on. Clang. It only took a moment to knock down the clones one by one. Just when she looked disdainful and thought that this was all he had, there was a sound of breaking wind from the other side. She caught a glimpse of it from the corner of her eye, and was secretly shocked. What? Mingshin had quietly approached her at some point, and the sharp edge of the Kusanagi sword was aimed at her waist diagonally, not giving her any chance to react, and swung it horizontally at high speed. Ding. A tall rock ninja suddenly jumped out, and took his sword attack. Exclamation mark. Mingshin's palms were numb, and he could not hold the shaking Kusanagi sword. He subconsciously looked at the other party and cursed. "Fuck, are you the King Khan Calabash brothers? Hey, what are Calabash brothers?" The man who appeared in time To block Kurotsuchi asked in confusion, is it a special snack from the land of fire? Mingshan was speechless and was too lazy to explain, so he retreated to a distance. You are stupid, Kaito. What that brat said was definitely not food. It was probably ninja tools or something. Heitu corrected Kaito's statement seriously and explained himself. Oh, is that so? Kaito looked at the other party. Ahem. Mingshan was speechless to cover up. It doesn't matter what it is. Watch out. Bang. He raised his hands, pointed at the two people, and shouted, wood style, cutting technique. Whoosh, whoosh. Kaito saw the wooden thorns that were very similar to those on the ground, sprayed out of his hands, and decisively spit out a large amount of turbid yellow soil from his mouth, which quickly accumulated and solidified, blocking the two people in front of him for defense. Boom, boom, boom. Amidst the dull sounds, the yellow soil firmly blocked the fast-moving wooden thorns. Heitu took advantage of this gap, quickly formed a seal with his hands and shouted, water style, water yi naiyuan. Then, she flashed from the side of Kaito and sprayed a series of unknown turbid liquids towards Mingshan's position, which directly splashed on the new wave of wooden thorns that followed. Puff, puff. Several wooden thorns had just flown out of Mingshan's palm and had not gone far when they touched her inexplicable mucus. They lost their forward inertia and fell to the ground. Hey, what's that thing that came out of your mouth? Mingshan was a little puzzled and asked the other party directly. Oh, you want to know? He too said teasingly. Guess. Chapter 208 Woodflies. Damn, guess your sister, just don't tell me. Mingshan cursed in his heart and didn't speak to Heitu, but flapped his steel wings around the two of them, cruising and searching. Why is he circling around us? Heitu muttered when he saw him like this. I don't know, maybe he's looking for something. After guessing and mumbling, Akaji said something nonsense without any constructive meaning. This kid is very different from the Konoha ninjas we usually meet. You said that, but it doesn't mean you didn't say it. I know it too. He too was quite amused by him and said with a frown, TSK, but I'm really annoyed when I see him circling around us like this. Ha ha. Mingshan circled around the two of them for several times and found that it was difficult for him to break through head on with the protection of Akaji's layer of yellow soil. After all, both sides were in midair now, and most ninjutsu could not be carried out smoothly. He couldn't just conjure up a whole forest like a magic trick on the top of the sky. Then there is only one choice left. Mingshan felt helpless. He activated his steel wings and lifted himself to a higher place. He took out the bottle of special ration pills given by the fire temple from his arms, poured 2 pills into his mouth, and began to make seals with his hands. What is he going to do? Kurotsuchi walked out of the protective circle and looked up at the sky. He clapped his hands together and shouted, wood release, multiple wood clone technique. Swish, swish, swish. TSK. Kurotsuchi saw from below that more than a dozen clones exactly like him quickly split out from Mingshan's body, flapping their steel wings, holding sharp swords, and preparing to dive down together. Not good, Kurotsuchi. He is going to use the aerial human wave tactics to attack us. Akatsuki saw his intention. TSK, this guy's really wretched. Hita cursed angrily. She looked at the many clones that were gradually approaching and flying densely in front of her. She had to fly backwards with Chitu and put her hands together vigorously. Water style, water yi naiyuan. She puffed her cheeks and sprayed a large amount of that strange liquid at them. Wow. Swish. Several clones rushed forward recklessly, and they were hit one after another. Their hands and wings were glued together by carelessness, causing their movements to slow down, and they were forced to fall to the ground. Seeing this, the other clones only paused for a moment, then flexibly dispersed their distances, and then flew towards Hitu and the other two to attack. TSK, her thing is quite troublesome. Mingshan thought to himself. Then I'll increase the number and see how long you can hold out. After making up his mind, he immediately bit open the 2 pills in his mouth. A refreshing minty cool taste instantly filled his mind. He was a little surprised. Hey, it's true. The pills of bull donkeys are very different from the ones I usually eat. This made him feel very comfortable and increased his efforts to create more wooden clones, using cluster tactics to harass the opponent. Damn it. While dealing with the clones, Kurotsuchi caught a glimpse of him splitting and creating more wooden clones to attack him. Although he was so angry that he gnashed his teeth, he could only stare blankly. Where does this guy get so much chakra in his body that he can't do anything about it? He hated. The clones we destroy are far less fast than the ones he creates. Just as the two gradually fell into a bitter battle, Mingshan, who had already gathered a new batch of clones on the high ground, raised the corners of his mouth. Whoosh, whoosh. Driven by his thoughts, they flocked to the rock ninja one after another. Clang, bang. Kurotsuchi, let's go down first. Akatsuki waved his fists, ignoring their knives, and taking the attack, and turned back to her from time to time and said, it's too disadvantageous to fight that kid in the air. I can't fully launch my ninjutsu. Yeah, okay. Kurotsuchi agreed with him, and then casually took out a few purple balls from his sleeve, and mixed them between his knuckles. Ding. Ha. Akatsuki swept horizontally, and when he temporarily repelled the attack of Mingshan's clone, he seized this rare opportunity, and said to Kurotsuchi, take advantage of now. Swish, swish, swish. With a swing of his hand, Kurotsuchi accurately swept the blade of a clone on the left, and bang. Instantly created a large amount of purple fog to cover, and the two took the opportunity to escape from here. TSK, is it a smoke bomb? After seeing the door, and concluding that Kurotsuchi and Akatsuki were going to run away, he was not willing to let the two leave so easily. He immediately stopped creating clones, shook the Kusanagi sword a few times, and flapped his wings to bypass the smoke and chased them. Bang, bang, bang. As Ito retreated, he threw smoke bombs at places where the clones were densely packed. Each time the bombs were launched, they would hit the sword blades held by the clones and explode to create a large purple mist to cover the clones' sight. The two sides chased and ran down, and soon they could see the ground. Chatu couldn't help but grin and said, we are only a few steps away from the ground, and we can finally. But suddenly, oh, you are dreaming. A voice suddenly sounded on the right side of the two of them. When did that kid cruise near us? He too stared at Mingshan's flashing figure. Swish, swish. Before he could start defending himself, he was approached by him. He was very surprised, and said to himself, oh no, I haven't formed the seal yet. Whoosh. Just when his sword was about to quickly cut through the unprepared he too. Clang. Chatu crossed his hand in time to block her eyes, and took the sword attack. TSK. Mingshan saw that his attack was blocked, so he immediately drew back his sword, kicked Kaitu's wrist, and turned over to distance himself. Swish, swish. The two also took the opportunity to speed up, and after controlling their own light and heavy rock techniques, they returned to the ground safely. Mingshan saw this, still flapping his steel wings without giving up, and swooped over to where the two were with several clones. He is really persistent. Kaitu saw him attack again, and only sighed hurriedly, then clapped his hands and shouted, Earth escape clay falling from the sky. Ha. Mingshan noticed that his surroundings suddenly became dark, and subconsciously looked up, and couldn't help cursing. Fuck. Suddenly, a large amount of dark red clay fell from the hole in the different space above him. Whoosh, whoosh. It happened in a split second. Mingshan was very alert, and flapped his wings in time, and flew far into the air to avoid it, but the other clones were not so lucky. They were all attached to them, trapped and unable to move, and fell straight to the ground. After the clay fell to the ground, he flew close to the two of them and confronted them. Humph, it's a pity that I can't make explosive clay like Deidara, otherwise I really want to blow you, a wooden fly, into pieces. He too stood there, looking up at Mingshan angrily and cursing loudly. It was very uncomfortable to fight him in the sky, because she couldn't close the distance between them. She felt the frustration of Wenya and the others. This guy was really too despicable. Hey, why do the enemies I fight call me a wooden fly after the fight? Hearing Hitu's scolding, Mingshan was very entangled and depressed about this question. Chapter 209 Hunting. He shook his head and didn't think about anything else. Just when he was about to concentrate on fighting the enemy, Mingshan looked up and saw the rock ninja troops rushing to support him from afar. What a trouble. He signaled with his eyes, driving the many clones in the air to fly away and go to fight the large army. He signaled with his eyes, driving the many clones in the air to fly away and go to fight the large army. when Ya and Yifen, who were running halfway, heard a strange sound in the sky and took the initiative to look up and found many clones flying rapidly in the air. The two looked at each other in their hearts, but were forced to lead their troops and not go to deal with them for the time being. Hey, Kit, if you have the guts, come down and fight me openly. Kurotsuchi continued to shout at him through the air. Hey, if you say that, how could he fly down? Kaito shook his head and advised her, don't waste your breath. Heli too. Huh, do you think I'm stupid? Sure enough, after hearing what Heli 2 said, Mingshan complained speechlessly. You said let me come down. I will come down. Then how can I? Huh. It turns out that all the seaweed heads in this world are of the same character, ugly and cowardly, and deserve no one to love them. It's absurd. Fuck, we provoked you. How can seaweed heads be shameless? Swish, swish. Mingshan flew to the ground angrily, holding the Kusanagi sword, and rushed towards Heita very directly and quickly. Question mark? Kaito was dumbfounded watching him running over. His brain was a little confused, and he raised his hand to seal and defend himself, muttering, no way, this guy really came down because of what Heita said? Forget it, who cares about him? Swish, swish. Mingshan just accelerated and was about to swing his sword to chop down Hitu, but whoosh. Chitu appeared on his left and punched him, forcing him to change his sword and attack. Clang. The sound of metal and stone clashing rang out again. The three of them were entangled and fought for more than 10 rounds. Whoosh. Mingshan made a feint to the two of them, then retreated and distanced himself from them. His palm holding the Kusanagi sword was sweating, which was rare, soaking the hilt. Hey, big guy, what the hell did you put on your body? Mingshan couldn't help but point the blade at his hand and asked. Hey, are you talking about this? Looking up at the dent on the back of his hand caused by the Kusanagi sword, Kaito honestly smoothed it out and explained, this is just an ordinary hardening technique. In fact, in our village, when Heitu heard that he was going to continue, he was afraid that Kaito would tell some secrets of the village, which would be terrible, so he interrupted him hurriedly. Kaito, what's the point of talking to this guy? Hurry up and do it. Oh, okay. After hearing Heitu's scolding, Kaito nodded very cooperatively, closed his mouth again, and was about to take the initiative to attack. Hey, why are you so fierce to others? Be careful that you won't be able to get married in the future, you tomboy. Mingshan hypocritically inserted the Kusanagi sword into the mud, shook his sore hand, and spoke up for Kaito. Asshole. He too was immediately irritated by his words. What did you just say? She was about to rush forward to fight with the seaweed head, but thanks to Chitu holding her arm tightly, she didn't make any more trouble. Hey, calm down, Hitu. Chitu persuaded helplessly, don't be impulsive. Let me go. Hitu struggled, glared at the other party fiercely and shouted, I must tear this kid's mouth alive. TSK, I just complained about you, why do you have to? Mingshan heard the words, his face twitched, and he was about to speak speechlessly. Hey, what are you doing? Suddenly, a voice sounded above the few people. Clang. A wooden clone was kicked down from midair and smashed to the ground. Bang. A figure landed right after it, causing a burst of dust. Ta. The person walked out of the thick dust slowly. Kurotsuchi stopped struggling now. Hurry, let go. She patted Akaji to signal her to let go of her, stared at the person who came for a long time, and said in surprise after seeing clearly, Brother Shao, why are you here? Huh. Akaji let go when he heard that, and looked at the man who walked out of the dust and missed curiously. I just came back from a mission into Kirigakure village, and passed by the border of the Land of Fire. I happened to run into a few guys who were searching there. They said that you all sneaked into Konoha. Shao moved his stiff neck. I rushed all the way here and finally caught up with you. Really? Kurotsuchi took 2 steps towards him and asked with a smile, Brother Shao, why are you chasing us so hard? How can I do without my participation in this kind of war? Shao said with a wicked smile, looking at Mingshan with contempt. Just a wooden fly. Look at me. Swish, swish. HMM. He too saw Mingshan suddenly appear from his left side and swing with a sword, and he subconsciously stepped back, but Shao did not dodge, and he quickly raised his leg and ran away. Whoosh. Then, a fatal stab suddenly rushed out from the dust and mist that was about to dissipate, aiming at Xiao's neck artery and hitting it directly. Unexpectedly. HMPH. Xiao saw it with the corner of his eye and just calmly spread his palm to aim at the tip of the sword. As soon as the two touched, white light flashed. Bang. Crack. There was a violent explosion, and it rang out from his hand, and the blade was broken into 2 pieces. Fuck. Mingxin looked at the man called Xiao in astonishment. He clenched his other hand into a fist and hit his clone's chest hard. After only a moment. Bang. Clang. It actually blew his clone into half. What's wrong with that hand? It can explode? Mingxin exclaimed in surprise, and couldn't help but ask, can detonating tags be used like this? Idiot. Hearing this, Kurotsuchi couldn't help but sneer and complain about him, boasting proudly, Brother Xiao, you are a member of our Iwagakure village's blasting team. You are born with a bloodline limit formed by the combination of the 2 chakra attributes of Earth Escape and Lightning Escape, Explosion Release. Akatsuki's mouth twitched as he watched Kurotsuchi pouring out all the secret information inadvertently to the other party, muttering to himself, who scolded me for talking too much just now? Explosion Release. Mingxin heard this, lowered his head, and pondered for a while, muttering to himself, how do we break this thing? It looks like it will explode if touched. It's really troublesome. Xiao, who was standing opposite, didn't give Mingxin a chance to think of a countermeasure. After blasting away the other clones who followed and flashed to attack one by one, he ran straight towards him. When he left, he did not forget to turn his back to the 2 people from the same village and shouted, Kurotsuchi, Akatsuki. Understood. The 2 men heard him and moved together on his left and right. TSK, not good. Mingxin saw the 3 people rushing towards him, and he casually pulled out the Kusanagi sword stuck in the ground, flapped his steel wings, and flew into the air to meet the enemy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210 Fight. Ha ha. Oh no, that kid. When he too saw him spread his wings, he immediately guessed that the seaweed head wanted to fly up again, so he accelerated his pace and tried to catch up with him. He too. When she passed by Xiao, she heard a shout and looked at him in confusion. Brother Xiao, don't worry. Xiao smiled at her without any reason, telling her not to worry. He too was very confused by his words and was about to say something else. Boom. Crack. There was an unexpected explosion in front of the few people. She turned around and was surprised to find that the wings behind the seaweed head were attacked by another Xiao who came out of nowhere, and the steel wings were blown off. Damn it. Mingxin's other clone flashed out and stabbed him with a sword. Bang. As soon as Xiao was stabbed, he turned into white smoke and disappeared. Could it be that the moment he fell, he used the dust and fog to cover up and let his shadow clone hide underground? Mingxin thought to himself and took out a small pill from his waist bag and threw it to the ground. Bang. Thick fog sprayed out, blocking the 3 people's sight. Taking the opportunity to retreat, he grabbed his damaged wings and put them back into the scroll to hide. Swish, swish. Before the thick fog dissipated, the 3 people rushed out of it. Looking up, they saw Mingxin had distanced himself from them again. Kurotsuchi was sharp-eyed and found that the thing behind him had disappeared. Swish, swish. 2 shurikens were thrown out from Mingxin's hands and rushed straight towards the rock ninja. Bang, bang. He just spread out his palms, and the 2 shurikens hit his palms at once, flashed with light, and were ejected back at high speed in the opposite direction. Ding, ding. Mingxin swept the Kusanagi sword with all his strength, blocking 2 shurikens that flew back. So awesome, Brother Xiao. She praised Xiao. The 2 of them had been unable to deal with the pair of wings behind the seaweed head, but he blew them off so easily. TSK, it looks like I'll cause trouble for Fang Zhu when I go back. Mingxin muttered, and after putting away the scroll containing the chakra armor, he continued to concentrate and guard against the 3 people. HMPH, kid, I advise you to surrender as soon as possible. Kurotsuchi shouted at him. Okay, call me good brother, and I'll raise my hands in surrender. Mingshan suddenly retorted and teased her. Xiao and Akaji looked at each other and thought, is this guy crazy? You. When Hita heard this, veins popped out on his forehead. He responded by clapping his hands, pressing them to the ground and shouting, Earth escape, Earth stalagmites. Mingshan jumped up with a cry of surprise. As soon as his feet left the ground, several sharp rock pillars broke through the ground and stabbed towards where he was standing. Xiao and Akaji saw Hita launching an attack, and they immediately retracted their sights and started to attack together. Not to mention this girl, those two alone are enough to give me a headache. Mingshan retreated to the dense forest and quickly ran away, while secretly thinking about countermeasures. That guy named Xiao, if I'm not mistaken, should have concentrated all his chakra on his fist. Once he hits or touches something, it will explode. How can this be solved? He was frowning and thinking when a low voice suddenly came. Earth escape, submerge in the earth. Mingshan turned his head and saw that the ground under the feet of Kaito and Xiao suddenly turned into a fluid, causing them to instantly sink into it, just like diving into the sea, swimming quickly in the depths. Zebei, you guys can do this? He cursed and spit, and seeing that Hita seemed to be forming a seal, he quickly spoke loudly, trying to say, didn't you just say that you wanted to fight me in a fair duel? Huh, that was obviously a lie, idiot. Hita sneered at him, only a ghost would fight you in a fair duel. Then, she also dived in and quickly approached Mingshan. Fuck. Mingshan gnashed his teeth, but he could do nothing. He could only secretly swear, stinky girl, don't let me get you one day. Even though he thought so, after sheathing his sword, he still made a seal with his hands and whispered, wood style, violent spear tree. He stretched out multiple tree buds from his arms and rushed into the soil around him, consuming the chakra injection as quickly as possible, allowing them to quickly grow tangled and thick tree roots underground to block the three people from continuing to sneak. Huh! Exclamation mark. The three people who were sneaking underground suddenly ran into the tree wall. Seeing that their way forward was blocked, Kaito and the others did not think much and decisively emerged from the ground. Whoosh, whoosh. As soon as they showed their heads, several shuriken flew close and attacked them. Bang, bang. Xiao acted very quickly and flashed in front of Hita and Kaito, blocking this wave of attacks and blasting them away. Damn, this palm. Mingshan saw this and simply inserted his hands into the soil, quickly using chakra to stimulate the growth of the trees. Crack, crack. Kaito's heart suddenly jumped, and before he could open his mouth to remind Hita who was standing beside him, he hurriedly pushed her aside. Kaito, what are you doing? Hita was pushed far away by Kaito, and before he could get angry and yell, crack. I saw that at the place where she had just stood, several thick tree roots drilled out from the ground. After Kaito made sure she was safe, he wanted to jump away, but it was too late. He was wrapped tightly and firmly by the vines that sprang out from his feet, and he couldn't easily break free. Whoosh, whoosh. Just as Kaito tried to break free from the green strip, two shurikens quickly pierced into him, and buff. After easily avoiding the vital points, they directly cut off the weak parts of the vines. Bang. Akatsuki looked at Xiao, who was also trying to get rid of the sticks. The two looked at each other. After he nodded slightly, he took the opportunity to break free and immediately jumped away to avoid it. Fuck, even though they are unreliable, I didn't expect that they are quite united with each other. Mingshan muttered in frustration. Damn, this insidious wooden fly. Kurotsuchi cursed, glared at him fiercely, and quickly got up, slapped the ground with a seal. Lava release, Humo wall. She converted the chakra in her body into rubber and sprayed a super large elastic protective film from the ground towards Mingshan to cover him. TSK. Mingshan saw the super large thing rushing towards him. No way. He quickly cut off the transmission of chakra and got away. Swish, swish. Just as he jumped up, there was a sound behind him, and he was shocked. Oh no. I succeeded. Xiao shouted. Landmine fist. He concentrated his chakra on his fist and hit him hard on the back. Bang. A dull explosion sounded, covering the figures of the two, making it difficult for Akatsuki and Kurotsuchi to see the situation inside. What happened? Kurotsuchi asked himself anxiously, waiting for the result. Don't worry, we will know soon. Akatsuki was very calm. Chapter 211. Comparison of miserability. Somewhere in the southwest of the border post, beside a stream waterfall. Ding, ding, ding. At this moment, the flocks of birds in the forest had already been startled away by the screams and shouts of humans and disappeared. On the ground beside the narrow stream, there were bloodstains of various shades. Although they happened at different times, they all silently told the tragic situation here. Takuno was so tired that he was panting. He looked up and felt the breeze blowing through his hair. He muttered, "The wind direction has changed again." He retracted his gaze, stuffed the pill in his hand into his mouth and crushed it. Fortunately, Mingshan gave me some of his ration pills at that time, otherwise, I can't imagine how I could have persisted in fighting this fierce battle. Looking at the scattered bodies of rock ninjas on the ground, Takuno's face and forehead were covered with hot sweat. He looked to the side and asked the man standing on a pile of wooden ruins, "How are you, Mingshan?" "It's okay." A Mingshan with wings hanging on his back answered him. "Oh, I'm so ashamed. I've caused you to lose so many of my clones, and now you're the only one left who can still move." Takuno said half self-deprecatingly and half apologetically. "Well, why are you so polite to a clone?" Mingshan said with a smile. "I came here to assist you." Then he put away his smile and looked at the new wave of troops organized by the rock ninjas on the opposite side, who were attacking fiercely, and reminded him seriously, "Takuno, it's time to attack." "Oh." At the same time, in another place away from the battlefield. Swish, swish. Two people quickly crossed the dense forest, trying to get rid of the large number of rock ninjas chasing them. Whoosh, whoosh. When the two jumped onto the trunk of a big tree, a large number of rock ninjas who came out of nowhere suddenly appeared around them and surrounded them. "We are trapped, Captain Yishan." "Yes." Yishan looked around. Just as the rock ninja was about to swing his sword at the two, he said calmly to Mingshan behind him, "You can start now." "Understood." Hearing the instructions, he immediately blew a whistle. Whoosh, bang, bang, bang. "What's going on?" "Ah." The rock ninjas trapped around the two of them were injured by the series of unknown explosions. "Let's go, Mingshan." Yishan swung his ponytail slightly, holding the sword in his right hand in reverse, and instantly created a powerful wind blade to attack the rock ninjas while swinging. "Okay." Mingshan also swung the Kusanagi sword in his hand, calling on other clones hiding in the dark, and they all appeared and attacked the rock ninja troops who were in chaos. A fierce battle began again. Just as everyone was fighting hard in the north. At this time, under the ground of Konoha village, there was a dark and humid intersection somewhere. Danzo was standing in the middle, leaning on his cane, and giving instructions in an orderly manner to a ninja who was kneeling on one knee in front of him. "My request is very simple. You must learn this sealing technique." "Yes." The ninja who was kneeling on one knee, with black hair and black eyes and a very white face, responded respectfully to Danzo, but he did not raise his head to ask too much about the reason. The third Hokage is one of the few people in the world who can master the 5 chakra attributes, but when dealing with the first and second Hokage who were resurrected by Orochimaru through the impure world reincarnation, he paused and looked at the huge scroll on the ground coldly. He spoke slowly. He had no other choice but to sacrifice himself and use the method of the Shikifujin to barely seal the two adults. Even for the convenience of future missions and a virtuous cycle in work, we roots must master a set of powerful sealing techniques belonging to our faction to deal with such situations. But, to be able to seal a powerful sealing technique like Orochimaru, with my current, you should be able to do it. Danzo answered confidently before he finished speaking. Sei looked up in surprise. As a member of the Root, I have always taught you that emotions are very redundant for ninjas when performing missions. Danzo said to him. Yes, Sei admitted. Repressed emotions turn into huge energy and accumulate deep in your heart. Danzo instructed him, release these in the form of energy conversion, and the sealing technique will become extremely powerful. Sei nodded silently in agreement, without interrupting Danzo's words. However, you must remember that when you release your emotions, you will also be captured by negative thoughts, which will lead to loss of control. So even if you want to practice, you must be very careful. I understand, Danzo-sama. After Danzo said this, after letting Sei digest this information on his own, he immediately threw the core summary scroll about the sealing technique to him, and turned around and left. Sei was left alone, half kneeling on the ground, holding the scroll in his hand, silently staring at his back as he left. An eagle screamed across the sky, in another forest far away from Takuno and Hayama. Mingshan covered his injured right shoulder with his left hand, and the Kusanagi sword stood beside him. He spit out the blood phlegm in his mouth, and looked up at the hunter, who was far away from him. I really underestimated you, kid. Shao endured the severe pain, and pulled out the barbed kunai that pierced his wrist. Hiss. You are so cruel at such a young age. Pop. The moment it was pulled out, blood splattered and sprayed on the ground. Same here. Cough. Mingshan felt a sweetness in his throat, and couldn't help coughing up blood. Brother Shao. After the dust and fog dissipated, he too and Chita saw that his hand was seriously injured and rushed over to check. It's okay, it's just a minor injury. Shao shook his head, indicating that it was okay. Hiss. Kaito didn't think so. After seeing the wound on his wrist, he took a breath of cold air. Shao, you still call this okay? Damn it. Heitu also saw the shocking wound on Shao's wrist, and couldn't help but look up and scold Mingshan, who was spitting blood. You guy, you hit me. You hit me too lightly, okay? Mingshan didn't wait for her to finish scolding, and interrupted her and said, are you blind? He beat me to the point of spitting blood. Who is more seriously injured? I don't care if you die. Heitu was not polite at all and was furious. You. Mingshan was going to scold her a few words, but he changed his mind and decided to forget it. He took out a small medicine bottle from his arms, poured out 2 brown hemostatic pills, opened his mouth and swallowed them. Heitu, there is no point in talking more. Kaito shook his head to persuade, and took an offensive posture and said, let's go. Yes. Heitu nodded, moved instantly, and rushed towards Mingshan. Zibei, you really know how to pick the time. Mingshan had a headache, and had to pick up the Kusanagi sword on the ground again. He casually stuffed a soldier pill into his mouth, chewed it, and continued to fight with others. Chapter 212 Ebisu. TSK, I see this guy's always taking drugs, he never stops. Kurotsuchi looked down on him when he saw his actions. Akatsuki heard her complaining like that. She didn't know how to answer for a long time. She said with a stiff face, maybe, his family runs a drugstore. TSK. Kurotsuchi heard that, rolled her eyes at Akatsuki, and when she was about to approach the guy, she raised her hand, and quickly made a seal, and shouted, Earth style, Earth, and Stone Dragon. She continuously injected chakra into the ground, combining a large amount of soil and gravel into an earth dragon with amazing momentum, and pounds towards Mingshan fiercely. Seeing this, he temporarily held the weapon to his mouth, and he also made a seal and shouted, wood style, thorn killing technique. Instantly, several thick wood with branches and leaves rose from the ground, where the earth dragon was flying, binding it up, and making it unable to move at all. TSK. Kurotsuchi looked at the ninjutsu he had performed in annoyance, but was easily restrained by him. Kaito took advantage of Mingshan's busy casting spells, and sped up in an instant. He came to Mingshan, and raised his hand, rock fist. Whoosh. His fist was covered with hard rock, which made him hold the might of 1,000,000 pounds, and punched Mingshan's face hard. Bang. Just when Heitu thought that the boy was dead, and had no time to avoid being beaten, suddenly, crack. Bang. From the ground under Mingshan's feet, a man who looked the same as him suddenly emerged, and unexpectedly punched Kaito, who had no time to reactivate the hardening technique. Kaito was careless, and stepped back several steps. He was supported by Heitu, who came after him in time. He couldn't help but ask the other party in confusion, when did you create a clone? Bang. A puff of white smoke dissipated. Mingshan only created an ordinary shadow clone this time. When he attacked me, Mingshan took out the Kusanagi sword from his mouth, opened his mouth to remind them, and pointed the sword at Shao. What? Heitu screamed. I see. Akatsuki was not surprised, and even praised. I have to say, your combat reaction ability is really fast. After being a genin for a long time, you can master the proficiency like me. Mingshan said without surprise. How is it possible? I don't believe it. Kurotsuchi pointed at him. The actual combat ability like you just now is not something that a mere genin can do. Then I can only say that the genin in your village are too useless. Mingshin teased her. You. Okay, Kurotsuchi. At this time, Xiao, who had been behind, suddenly spoke up and stopped the two from continuing to quarrel. Even if I underestimated you a little. He treated the wound on his wrist a little and walked to Kurotsuchi and Akatsuki. But you won't be so arrogant that you think you can stop our invasion by yourself. Who knows? Mingshin raised the Kusanagi sword in his hand. Everything depends on human efforts. Humph, you are so arrogant, and you are not afraid. When Kurotsuchi was about to ridicule Heikyo for the first 2 sentences, a loud shout came from the air. The technique of multiplication. Bang. When Yad and his companions, who were fighting a final battle with a bunch of clones far away from them, watched the guy making his body bigger and bigger. He was shocked and subconsciously asked his companions, who is this guy? I don't know him either. He shook his head blankly. Boom. Before the rock ninjas could guess the other party's identity, the giant sturdy man swung his equally giant iron weapon in his hand and swept through the enemies under his feet. Ding. Cap. Ah. All the rock ninjas touched by the sturdy man's weapon could not stop his attack and were all swept out of the forest with screams. What's wrong with that man? Kurotsuchi asked Akatsuki in surprise. I don't know either. He shook his head blankly. TSK, that man is from the Akimichi clan of Konoha village. After Xiao said that, he gritted his teeth and said, damn it, how could he suddenly appear here? That man is Uncle Ding Zuo. Mingshin also looked up at the figure of the strong man. Before he could finish his surprise, another voice sounded from behind Kurotsuchi and the others. Fire style, great fireball technique. Whoosh. Then, a huge fireball with extremely high temperature quickly rushed from behind Kurotsuchi and the others. Akatsuki didn't think about it, turned around and blocked Xiao and Kurotsuchi, raised his hand to form a seal, earth style, earth flow wall. He spit out the soil directly from his mouth, forming a thick earth wall on the ground. Bang. He just managed to resist the surging hot flames in time. Swish, swish. A Konoha ninja wearing small sunglasses on his face quickly flashed to Mingshin, while the Iowa ninja was attracted by the fireball. Don't worry, young man. He said to him seriously. I, Ebisu, am here to protect you. Mingshin looked at the man from the side. He looked so wretched, just like a white-haired pervert. He couldn't help shaking his eyebrows and asked, dude, who are you? Ebisu felt embarrassed to see that he didn't admire his rare and handsome rescue as he imagined. He coughed dryly and changed the subject. Well, we are passing through the northern border and going to a foreign country to perform a mission. Dude, if you have any nonsense, talk nonsense later. They are coming. Mingshin didn't wait for him to finish talking and turned back and interrupted him rudely. TSK, this stinky boy. Hearing his impatient words, the little man in sunglasses gritted his teeth, but could do nothing. He reluctantly followed him to fight against the attacking rock ninja. Swish, swish. After Akato blocked the fireball, Keri and Kurotsuchi ran to Mingshin's side, attacking him head on. He held one hand behind his back and blocked the other hand in front of him, waiting for an opportunity to move. Just in time. Ebisu saw them running quickly, took out 3 shuriken from his waist bag, and mixed them between his fingers, and was about to aim at Kari and throw them to attack. Mingshin quickly slapped Ebisu's hand hard to stop him. Hey, what are you doing? Ebisu questioned him. Idiot, that one-handed guy can use explosive escape. You threw shuriken at him. Are you tired of living? Mingshin said to him unhappily. Ebisu gave up reluctantly after hearing this, but he was interrupted by him, and the other person was almost close to him. Mingshin calmly took out a purple ball from his leg bag and threw it hard on the ground. Bang! As the thick fog spread, the two jumped back. Earth escape. He too, Xiao. Just as he too was about to cast a spell to attack, Chita suddenly shouted with his back to the two of them. What's wrong, Chita? He too and Xiao turned to look at him in confusion. Boom, boom. The ground was shaking. Before Chitu could explain, the two saw the huge figure from before, slowly walking towards the battle. Could it be that Wenya and the others? He too looked at the giant and had a bad feeling in his heart. Thanks to book friend 201701052237351778 for the monthly tickety cast today. Also thanks to book friend 201812111433555948 for the recommendation votey cast today. Chapter 213 What's your name? I'm afraid they've been beaten back. Xiao took over her words and analyzed. Then what should we do now? Akagi didn't turn around and asked for the two's opinions. Retreat. Xiao said to them decisively. What? Hitsuchi heard that, a little bit unacceptable. That kid is still alive and kicking. Are we just going to? There will be plenty of opportunities in the future, Hitsuchi. Xiao looked at the wound on his wrist and then looked at Mingshan and said gloomily and firmly, you should remember this grudge first and find a chance to settle with him another day. Xiao brother. She tried to say something else. Ku Hitsuchi. Even Akagi couldn't help but turn his eyes away and dissuade her. Okay. Seeing that Akagi also objected, Kiritoshi and the two of them compromised helplessly. He just glared at Mingshan. Hey, why didn't they launch ninjutsu to attack us again? Ebisu pushed up his sunglasses and murmured in confusion. Look there. Mingshan didn't answer him directly, but raised his hand and pointed. Ebisu followed the direction of the finger and moved his eyes. Then he noticed, oh, it's Ding Zeduo and the others coming. No wonder. Boy, what's your name? Xiao suddenly asked him. Hey, are you asking me? Mingshan asked him in confusion. Nonsense, who else do you think Xiao is asking? He too took the opportunity to choke him. Wow, I said you are a girl after all, can't you speak more gently? Mingshan was speechless to her. It just so happened that his ear was a little itchy, so he stretched out his little finger to scratch it. You act like a real man. If you don't know, you would think you are Chunje's cousin. Hey, who is Chunje? Ebisu was stunned when he heard it and asked him in confusion, is there such a person in our village? Well, don't pay too much attention to the details. Mingshan laughed and perfunctorily answered Ebisu. You guy. Although he too didn't know who he was talking about, he guessed that this guy must have said nothing good. Kurotsuchi. Xiao turned his eyes away, stopping her from saying anything more, and then said to Mingshan, my name is Xiao, and I belong to the demolition unit of Iwagakure. Why do you have to know my name? Mingshan asked him curiously, can I ask you? Because you are qualified to be hunted by me. Xiao said bluntly, I really don't understand your second year ideas. Although Mingshan shook his head to show that he couldn't understand, he still said, my name is Ito Mingshan, a new genin of Konoha village. Ito? Xiao whispered to himself, and then raised his eyes and said, okay, I'll remember you. Let's go. After hearing what the two of them said, Akatsuki turned around and urged Kurotsuchi and Xiao to retreat. Okay. The two nodded. Now Senior Ding Zeduo is about to come over to join us. Young man, let's take the opportunity to catch up and entangle the Iwagakure ninjas. Seeing that the three were about to evacuate and escape, Zyomojin quickly suggested to him. Intercept. Mingshan looked at him in surprise. What are you thinking? I really don't understand how confident this guy is. He was injured like this, and it was good enough that he could protect himself. So what's the point of intercepting? What a good opportunity if we just let it go. Hey, buddy, if you want to intercept, just go ahead. I can't help you do this stupid thing now. Mingshan flatly rejected his proposal and stopped without saying a word. Seeing that he was so determined and refused to cooperate with him, Ebisu had no choice but to give up. Swish, whoosh. Just when Kurotsuchi and Kirigakure jumped back to Akatsuchi and were about to turn around and leave. Wait a minute. The three turned around and looked at him in confusion. Why, do you still want to continue fighting with us? Kurotsuchi looked at him fiercely. Hey, I'm not calling you. Mingshan also didn't look good to her, pointing to the side. I'm calling him me. Kaito was stunned when he heard that and asked him in confusion. What's the matter? I've introduced myself. Shouldn't you also say your name? My name is Kaito. Heitu saw the two of them asking and answering each other and pointed at Mingshan angrily, which really showed that he didn't take her seriously. What do you mean by you? Mingshan yawned. Go home and play in the mud, little brat. Arsehole. Heitu was furious when he heard that. It would be fine if this kid deliberately didn't ask her, but he actually dared to. She was about to get angry and rush over to fight him, but she was held by Kaito, who had a headache. Hey, calm down, Heitu. Really, Kaito, hold her, let's go. Shao saw that the giant was about to approach this side, so he didn't care about continuing to talk nonsense with the two of them, and held Heitu up with him, and then hid in the soil and sneaked away. Boom, boom. Just after Kurotsuchi and his men had evacuated for a while, the giant strode to the place where Mengshin and his men were fighting. He stepped on the position where the Iwagakure and his men had stood before, and looked down slightly, and found that all the enemies had disappeared from the surroundings. After making sure that they had completely left, Mengshin immediately relaxed physically and mentally, sheathed the Kusanagi sword, and sat down on the ground with a deep feeling. It's finally over. Well, are you Mengshin? When the giant shrank his body, he saw Mengshin sitting on the ground and subconsciously asked in a low voice, "Hey, Uncle Dingzeduo." Mengshin raised his hand and waved it slightly, which was considered a greeting to him. "Why are you here?" After Dingzeduo returned to his normal form, he walked straight over and asked him, "Shouldn't you be, Uncle Dingzeduo? The thing is, Mengshin will take over the border patrol with Yishan and his men in the north," and picked out some of the contents and told Dingzeduo roughly. "I see." After he finished his story, Dingzeduo helped Mengshin up from the ground and said, "Fortunately, at that time, Heiyi and I took on this mission and had to pass through the northern border to carry out the mission outside." "That's right, Dingzeduo Sr." Ebisu pushed his sunglasses and interrupted him at the right time. Mengshin heard this guy's voice and remembered him. He turned around awkwardly and smiled at him. "By the way, I was busy fighting with the rock ninja just now, and I didn't have time to ask for your honorable name." "You finally remembered it, kid." Ebisu looked at him speechlessly. Mengshin laughed awkwardly and said perfunctorily, "Sorry, please tell me, brother, so that it will be convenient to call you in the future." "Hey, my name is Ebisu." "Ebi what?" "Ebisu." "What Bisu?" "Ebisu." "Ebi what Bisu?" "Me." Ebisu was furious on the spot, trembling all over, and really wanted to tear this seaweed head who was deliberately looking for trouble to pieces. Although Dingzeduo didn't say anything, he looked at Mengshin with a strange expression. His eyes were very weird, as if to say, "That's enough, don't go too far." Chapter 214 Raid. Mengshin also felt that he had gone too far, so he quickly played dumb and explained to the two of them, "I just had a fierce battle with the rock ninja, and my ears were hurt by the detonating talisman." "Sorry." Ebisu looked at Mengshin with a blank expression, despising his lame nonsense. The atmosphere was a bit cold. Ahem. Dingzeduo couldn't help it and took the lead in breaking the awkward atmosphere, saying, "Heichi should be almost done." "Ah, that's right." Mengshin followed up, "I haven't seen Uncle Heiai since just now. Is he going?" "When we just came over, there were serial explosions. After discussing with us, he separated and went alone to the other side far away from us." Although Ebisu was depressed, he still explained the boy's whereabouts very seriously. "Is that so?" Mengshin nodded, and after a moment's hesitation, he looked up and said to Dingzeduo, "Uncle Dingzeduo, let's go over and support Captain Hayama and his men. Anyway, the enemies here have been temporarily repelled." "Yeah, okay." Dingzeduo didn't think much about it, nodded in agreement, and turned to look at the man in sunglasses. "Ebisu." "Understood, Dingzeduo Sr." He nodded in understanding. After a little reorganization, the three of them immediately set off to other battlefields to support Takuno and Captain Hayama and his men. I wonder if Hotaru and Tabei have safely arrived at Kachiraji Mountain. Looking at the rock ninjas killed by himself or Dingzeduo along the way, he suddenly remembered for no reason the information that the wooden clone had passed back when he and Naruto separated on Fang Fang Street, the land of fire, the southeast border. The weather was gloomy, with very fine raindrops floating in the sky. There was no gap in the dark clouds to show that it was clear and white. It was still sunny in the morning, but at this afternoon, the entire sky turned grey and green. When Dunby looked up while driving the carriage, it seemed that the sky was very close to them, and he could touch the coolness of the clouds with his hands. This unexplained gloomy atmosphere made him feel a little worried for no reason. What's wrong, Dunby? Hotaru's voice suddenly came from the carriage. She pulled open the curtain from inside and asked, why is the carriage suddenly moving so slowly? Oh, nothing. Dunby said with his back to her, hiding his worries in his heart. I think the weather will be gloomy in the afternoon, and it seems that it will rain. Miss Hotaru, what do you think? Townby, just make the decision. Don't ask me. Hotaru said lightly, before he finished speaking, and lowered the curtain again. Miss Hotaru. Dunby sighed silently, thinking, I hope she will feel better after returning to catch Siriji Mountain. The carriage creaked forward in such a gloomy atmosphere. In front of the master and servant, there were two roads that were invisible. A masked ninja was standing on a tree trunk, silently calculating how long it would take for their carriage to reach here. Get ready, it's time to start. In the carriage. He just turned his head and was about to pass the action order to a companion behind him. Ding. Puff. Suddenly, a group of ninjas with strikingly similar appearances rushed out and were fighting with their defenseless subordinates. He was in disbelief to see that the people he brought were killed one by those clones, and he was very annoyed. Assholes. Just as he pulled out his ninja sword and was about to go to rescue, two clones appeared on the left and right and attacked him, forcing him to fight. Ding. Ding. He had just chopped down a clone, and a new substitute immediately came up quickly to continue the fight. What's going on? The masked ninja couldn't help but speak, and asked subconsciously. Nothing. Suddenly, a clone came leisurely, stood in front of him and answered, watching the battle with a very cold look. I have been waiting for you to set up everything, before I was ready to start. Ito? Hearing this, the masked ninja was shocked and angry. Have you discovered our whereabouts a long time ago? He growled and chopped back the clone in front of him. This is impossible. Can't you change your lines to something new? He swung the Kusanagi sword speechlessly and slowly approached. The intelligence we received clearly. It was clearly seen that I had followed Ishan and the others to the north to carry out the mission, and I was not in the village, right? Mingshan finished for him, but now, the clone has strangely appeared here out of thin air. At this point, he smiled and asked, do you really want to know? Swish, swish. The masked ninja had no time to answer this question at this moment, because while he was muttering those things, new clones came one after another, joined the battle, and participated in the encirclement and suppression. Damn it, can't we kill them all? The ninja was secretly anxious. After forcing away a clone that was attacking him head on, he directly asked Mingshan, how many clones do you have here? Well, about 90. What? He looked at Mingshan in shock and inexplicable. This is impossible. You are just a genin. Nothing is impossible. Mingshan interrupted his questioning. You don't have to be a Jinchuriki to use a large number of clones, brother. Damn it. He watched his accomplices die tragically under their swords. I can't die. I must report the situation here to Danzo-sama. As a last resort, he took out 3 purple smoke bullets from his waist bag and secretly held them between his fingers. He pretended to move and instantly jumped onto another dead tree. Want to run? Mingshan sneered at him, tilted his head, and signaled the other clones who stayed in place with his eyes. The clones understood silently and nodded in agreement. Just as they were about to catch up with him. Bang, bang, bang. A large cloud of thick fog gushed out, spreading around and obscuring their vision. Whoosh. When they dispersed all the fog, the man had already disappeared. TSK, we let this guy get away. We were so careless. Although he was a little annoyed, he didn't care too much. He turned his eyes and asked his clone in the distance, how is it? He asked. All killed. The clone was half crouching beside the corpses and trying to wipe the blood off the sword. Everyone, work harder and destroy all these corpses on both sides of the road. Don't let Aang see them when she passes by. Okay. Under his command, everyone started to clean up again. Only he walked to the end of the treetops and looked into the distance. At this moment, he was unaware of the situation. The Tonbei and his party were slowly driving their horses past here, and there was silence for a long time. Morning? Huh? What are you thinking about? You didn't answer me when I asked you just now. Oh, sorry, Looking up and seeing Ding Zhuo looking at him in confusion, Ming Xian quickly gathered his thoughts, found a reason to explain, and then concentrated on going to the rescue with Ding Zhuo and the others, and no longer thought about eyeing. Chapter 215, Sea Storm. Just as they left the place, two ninjas appeared. I didn't expect that kid. One of them looked at the direction they left with a complicated look, and said to his companion, Ito has grown too weird, don't you think? Indeed, watching him fight, I almost had the illusion that he was a Jonin fighting with a rock ninja. He expressed his opinion of this boy, all because the technique he would use tomorrow had already exceeded the scope limit of what an ordinary genin could master, which was both cruel and efficient. Will the teachers in the ninja school teach him to kill people in such a vicious way? You know, Ito only came to Konoha from another village when he was young, and he didn't have any special family inheritance to learn. Who knows? The man shook his head. We just need to write down everything that happened here as soon as possible, informed Enzo-sama, and let him decide. Yeah. After a brief exchange, the two disappeared instantly. In the northeastern border waters of the Land of Fire, on a battleship. At this time, Shikaku, who was supposed to come as a representative of Konoha to negotiate, was tied up by a group of armored soldiers and thrown to the ground. There were bruises on his face. Pa. Feng Wei spat at him with disgust. You are such an ungrateful person. Huh. Shikaku was insulted like this, but he didn't care at all. He just closed his eyes and ignored her. Hey, speak up. Feng Wei was very angry after seeing his expression. Asshole, are you dumb? After scolding him several times, she was very angry when she saw that he was still like this. You guy. She was about to snatch the short axe from the waist of the armored soldier next to her. Ta. Suddenly, a hand wrapped in a steel wrist guard blocked her and stopped her from taking the short axe. Feng Wei's bloody pupils shrank slightly. Who is it? She looked up at the person who didn't know how to live or die and dared to stop her. Timsy? Feng Wei, Lord Hyde has told us not to touch him. Humph, I know, you don't need to remind me again. Feng Wei looked at the blonde, red-eyed boy in white armor standing in front of him, and withdrew his hand with dissatisfaction. Timsy. Huh. Timsy turned his gaze upon hearing the voice, and cast his eyes on the woman in green armor who was walking over from the other end of the deck, and asked in confusion, Camilla, what's wrong? Lord Hyde is looking for you. Camilla walked towards where they were. He's waiting for you on the flagship at the rear. Understood, I'll be there right away. Timsy glanced at the man on the ground, and then ordered the armored soldier standing beside him, you must cooperate with the Cloud Ninja, catch up with the ninja with a toothpick in his mouth, and kill him on the spot without mercy. The armored soldier nodded silently, turned around, and left the deck with heavy steps, ready to go ashore, to cooperate in the pursuit. Hey, is it over? At this time, a certain white-haired ninja who had been leaning against the railing in silence, stood up and spoke. Sorry, Deru. Hearing this, Timsy nodded slightly to him. Lord Hyde has something important to ask me. It's okay, we have plenty of opportunities to compete, and you all together again. You go ahead and do your work. Deru scratched his head and said to him listlessly on the surface, I will also go ashore to help chase the enemy. But secretly he breathed a sigh of relief. Hey, this annoying psychopath is finally gone. Yeah. After Timsy nodded to him, he left the battleship and boarded another small boat that had been prepared long ago, slowly sailing to where Hyde was. Feng Wei, take this person with you. We should also go to do our own things. Camilla ordered her. Deru, we will leave first. Oh please, I will leave soon too. Wow. Wow. At the same time, in the marginal sea area, where the Fire Country and the Iron Country meet, layers of white water lines pushed towards the beach at the edge of the land, and the waves that continuously washed the gravel and rolled continuously beat. A man with a talisman hanging on his ear was sweating profusely, bowing his head to his knees, standing on the beach and breathing heavily. Hey, are we in the Fire Country? I don't know. The man stood up and looked around with a sad face. What a trouble. The woman in a gorgeous blue dress frowned and felt a headache after hearing what he said. TSK, it's all your fault. The man muttered silently in his heart, I told you, don't get excited, don't get excited, but in the end the boat was burned through, causing me to drift on the water for so long, before I saw the land. What should I do now, King? The woman who couldn't hear his complaints kept walking around, and found that this area was both desolate and remote. Hearing her question, King withdrew his thoughts from his depression, and after a moment of silence, he said, let's go to the nearby locals, to ask about the situation here. Well, that's the only way for now. At this moment, somewhere in the northern border, the setting sun left a long trailing shadow, a blood red. Mingshan leaned on his knees, to catch his breath for a while, and then sat straight back. Are you okay? Xiaoquno, who was lying on the ground beside him, asked him. I'm still alive and can move. Mingshan answered him with a smile without any context. Sorry, Ding Zeduo, hey Yi, I've caused you trouble. Far away from the two of them, Yishan, who was also exhausted, tried his best to hold on, and said to Ding Zeduo and the others with a little apology. What are you talking about, Yishan? Ding Zeduo did not agree with him. When a companion is in trouble, it should be natural to help him, right? Ding Zeduo is right. Hey Yi, who was standing next to him, also smiled and nodded in agreement. Swish, swish. Just as everyone was chatting, a strange sound broke the silence. Everyone. Ebisu, who quickly appeared in front of everyone, shouted anxiously. What's wrong, Ebisu? Yishan and the others turned their eyes to him, and even Tikuna, who was lying on the ground, raised his head and looked over. I just found this person when I was on guard outside. Ebisu pointed to the seriously injured and unconscious Konoha ninja lying behind him. After carefully observing for a moment, Yishan asked Ebisu, who is this person? I don't know. Ebisu put the man down gently and laid him steadily on the ground, but when this man was about to faint, he told me that he was one of the two Konoha patrol teams stationed in a town far away from here. Border town. Tikuna just rolled his eyes and immediately thought, could it be? Yes, just as you guessed. Ebisu looked at Tikuna and nodded, and said seriously, a large number of Iwagakure troops are now trying to capture there. Chapter 216, Grey-faced Buzzard. Damn, these Iwagakure ninjas. Upon hearing this, Tikuna cursed and tried to stand up, hiss. But he pulled the wound on his waist. The place he mentioned, Iron Choser and others have been stationed there before. Hey, I said to the ninja. That's right. Choser nodded with a serious expression, and there are several small families gathered in the border town. If we have been waiting for the village to send reinforcement before taking action, I'm afraid the border town would have been captured by the Iwagakure ninjas long ago. Yishan carefully analyzed the current situation, took out the map, and discussed with everyone. Look. Yishan pointed to a point on the map. The location we are standing at now is roughly in the outer area of this outpost. As he spoke, he moved to another location and pointed. Combined with what Ebisu and Choser said, this is the only place in this area where a prefecture town could be established. That's right. Heiai nodded. From here, even if we rush to the border town at the fastest speed, it will take at least 4 hours. Yishan roughly calculated in his mind and informed everyone of his estimated time. Well, if we set off there now. At this time, Ebisu pushed his sunglasses and said at the right time, if there are no obstacles on the way, we can reach the border town in the middle of the night or the next morning. It seems that, Ding Zeduo, our mission to go abroad will be postponed. He said to him with a side face. Well, it should be. Ding Zeduo nodded casually and answered him without any objection and began to check the equipment on his own. What? Ebisu was a little stunned and awkwardly reminded the two of them kindly. Senior Heiai, the two advisors Mito and Tateshina repeatedly emphasized at the time that Konoha is now under invasion and attack by the Iwagakure. Choser suddenly interrupted Ebisu. Compared to the mission, if we just turn a blind eye and let the Iwagakure wreak havoc in the country, we will regret it then. Chos. Heiai shook his head to stop him from saying the rest, and said to Ebisu seriously, don't worry, Ebisu, if the top management blames us, we too will bear it together, and you won't be implicated. Senior, what are you thinking? I'm not this. Well, instead of wasting time talking nonsense, you might as well hurry up and set off. Before Ebisu could finish, Mingshan rashly interrupted the other person's nonsense and asked Yes-han, "Captain, what do you think?" TSK, what an impolite brat. Ebisu looked at the boy with frustration, as depressed as he could be. If his eyes could spit fire and burn people, he would definitely be the first to kill the seaweed head. Yishan combined the current situation of his team, frowned and thought for a long time, and then said to Mingshan and Ling Zeduo, "We will also participate in this rescue operation. But Yishan, you guys are now." "It's okay, Hey Yi, we can continue the operation." Hey Yi looked at the members of their team, and wanted to say something with some worry, but was interrupted by Yishan shaking his head. "Uncle Hey Yi, don't worry, if I can't beat the other party at that time, I will be the first to escape and go back to the village." Mingshan said to him with a teasing smile. "Hey, you kid." Hearing this, Hey Yi was angry and amused, and didn't know what to say to him. "Takuno, you stay and heal your wounds." Yishan turned his eyes, and suddenly said to him, "What?" Takuno was stunned, and then he was so anxious that he pretended to stand up again, trying to say, "Captain Yes-han, you are seriously injured now. Even if you can barely keep up, you can't exert much of your usual strength." Yes-han's opponent Kuno said earnestly, "Besides, there is this seriously injured member who needs someone to take care of him." He pointed at the ninja from the same village. "But Takuno, just rest and recover. We will be back to meet you soon." Mingshan put a hand on his shoulder and said seriously, "I promise." After looking at Mingshan, Takuno looked at Yes-han, gritted his teeth and thought for a moment, and finally agreed to their arrangement, compromised and sighed. "Okay. Then there is no time to waste." Heiai saw that the matter had been discussed and said, "Everyone, take a good rest. In 10 minutes, we will set off for the border town." "Okay." Everyone answered in unison, and dispersed to prepare. Swish, swish. On the coastline of the northeastern border of the Land of Fire, there was a Konoha ninja who was injured, and was being chased by 2 teams of cloud ninjas, and armored soldiers who were following closely behind him. There's nothing we can do. Seeing that the pursuit was getting closer and closer, the ninja suddenly turned around while running, and before the pursuers could react, he ejected the 1,000 bones in his mouth towards them. While it was flying, he raised his hand, and made a seal and shouted, "Ninja technique, 1,000 bones rain." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 1,000 bones were instantly divided into hundreds, and they all rushed towards the pursuers. 2 or 3 cloud ninjas who reacted a little slower were stabbed in the eyes or throats on the spot, screaming and falling to the ground and struggling. Ding, ding. On the contrary, the armored soldiers who were wearing heavy armor and walking more slowly behind him suffered very little damage under this wave of 1,000 bones rain, which was almost negligible. People chasing ahead, take precautions. The leader of the Jonin who followed behind the team to coordinate and direct the cloud ninjas and armored soldiers shouted to the front, "We must catch up with him and never let him run back to Konoha and kill him on the spot." Understood. The other cloud ninjas who were lucky enough not to be stabbed responded loudly, quickened their pace, and at the same time, were also cautious about the next sneak attack from the front. TSK, there are still so many people. Zuanjian reluctantly pulled out the kunai from his left chest, and with a dull sound, he threw the ninja tool to the back. "What should I do?" Zuanjian thought to himself, the nearest border town is probably the one in the west. Whoosh, whoosh. Just as he was thinking about where to flee to get rid of the pursuers, a group of shurikens suddenly flashed from behind. TSK. Zuanjian frowned and had to stop thinking for a while. He turned around and was forced to deal with this new wave of attacks. At this moment, it was nightfall, and the dusk had put away the long line of anxiety, opened its black pupils, and stared at the earth quietly. At the arrival of the night in Konoha village, the smoke from the chimneys of the residence was slowly rising. Suddenly, a grey-faced buzzard accidentally passed by at high speed in the night sky. In a dozen breaths, it easily flew to the distant northern border of the Land of Fire. Looking down, if you look carefully, you can find that at this moment, there are 5 people in the forest, who are quickly crossing and shuttling, and the direction of the front is straight to a border town, that is still far away from here. The buzzard stared lonely at the place, where this group of people were going. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217 Before the War. After a few whirring sounds, it didn't pay any more attention and flew straight past. However, when passing the town, the crisp metal collision sound of close combat could be vaguely heard from the ground. Fighting and shouting filled the entire space. How long will it take to reach the destination? Heiai senpai, Ebisu asked respectfully to Heiai, who was leading the way, while jumping in the team. According to our current pace, it is estimated that it will take another 2 or 3 hours to get there. Heiai said after a brief thought. I hope they can hold on until we come to rescue them. Hearing this, Ebisu looked up at the sky and said to himself with worry. Seeing this, Mingxin didn't say anything. After simply bandaging his external injuries, he took out a pill of military rations from the medicine bottle and swallowed it, fully preparing for the upcoming fierce battle. Under the night sky, in a corner of the park in Konoha village. At this time, Danzo was sitting quietly on a bench, closing his eyes, and listening to his subordinates who were half kneeling in front of him, reporting the information in detail. Failed. He murmured after his subordinates finished speaking. I'm so sorry, Master Danzo. The subordinate bowed his head in shame. Forget it, you can't blame it all on Terai. Danzo opened his eyes slightly, and his face didn't change much. Hearing this, Terai blamed himself. If I had known at that time that Ito was. Terai, remember, there is no if in this world. Failure is failure. When Danzo heard this, his expression finally changed a little, and his tone was grim. If we really want to talk about responsibility, it's still my own problem. I underestimated Ito too much. Looking up at the sky, I didn't expect that kid to be much more sophisticated than people of the same age. I was negligent. Indeed. Terai also nodded and agreed with Danzo's opinion. His past performance in school was completely harmless. Okay. Danzo interrupted before he finished speaking. Terai, you are also exhausted. Go back and rest early. Yes. Terai nodded, and then disappeared in an instant. Danzo looked up at the night sky alone, in silence. I don't know what he was thinking. Whoosh. Clang. The flames burned fiercely, and at this moment, half of the border town had been burned and swallowed by the fire. Earth-style, earth-flowing wall. A certain Konoha ninja roared, and he formed seals with both hands and slapped the ground. Boom. A thick earth wall rose straight up from the ground, barely blocking the fire that was about to spread forward. Whoosh, whoosh. Get out of the way. His companion, who was farther away from him, suddenly saw something flashing towards him, exclaimed, and hurriedly threw it to the ground. Whoosh. Boom. With a dull thump, 3 oversized Fuma shurikens narrowly passed by them, only cutting open the outer clothes of the two. These Iwagakure ninjas are so insidious. He looked at the Fuma shurikens that were stuck in the ground in front of him, but still shook a few times, and panted with lingering fear. Iwagakure, are you blind? His companion scolded him angrily. You didn't even see such a large shuriken, and you just stood there forming seals. I'm really sorry, Blade. Iwagakure apologized awkwardly. Hey, you two, why don't you get up quickly? Are you ready to lie there for the new year? A very clear and pleasant voice sounded behind them, scolding. Right away. Hearing this, Rockfist stood up with a straight back. The new round of Rock Ninja's attack is about to begin. Hurry up. The girl ran to the two of them, her forehead full of hot sweat. Let's go to the other side to support Yanao. Understood. The two of them answered in unison, and soon they and the girl set up some simple traps on the spot to delay the enemy for a while, and immediately rushed to another companion without stopping. This border town hasn't been completely conquered yet. Kurotsuchi, things are not as simple as you think. When Ya said to her with a bitter face, looking at the house that was still burning, he also felt very incredible. Those Konoha ninjas are really hard to deal with. They have been fighting desperately and swearing to die and never surrender. Don't worry. Suddenly, a man walked out from behind Kurotsuchi and Wenya with a bandaged hand, playing with shuriken up and down. Brother Shao. Kurotsuchi looked at him puzzled. I have asked the other small troops wandering in the forest to gather back. Shao's face suddenly became stern, and he threw it out with his hand. Boom. the shuriken firmly nailed into the head of a burning toy doll in front of him. At the latest by midnight, we can clear all the Konoha ninjas in this border town. Yeah. Kurotsuchi and Wenya looked at each other and nodded in agreement. By the way, why didn't Isiakaji? Shao turned his gaze and asked the two of them. He and Ippo are now. At night, outside the fire temple, Dilu was standing at the gate of the temple discussing something with Fangsu. After accidentally glancing at a corner outside the temple, he immediately stopped talking, walked straight past, and shouted as he walked forward, "Mr. Guji, what are you doing?" Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly saw that there was a seriously injured person on his back. "Dilu, hurry up, talk to me later." Guji urged him while jogging, "Come and help, saving people is important." "I understand." Dilu didn't dare to neglect it and immediately turned his head and shouted to Fangsu, "Fangsu, come and help." "Oh, okay." Fangsu answered in a daze at first, and when he got closer and saw it clearly, he pushed his glasses frame and ran over to help the two. Half a cup of tea passed. Guji, accompanied by Dilu and Fang Zhu, took great pains to properly settle Yanshu. The three bandaged and cleaned up all his wounds. Yanshu said a few words of thanks and soon fell asleep. His team was invaded and besieged by Iwagakure, and he escaped alone under the cover of his teammates to find reinforcement. Yanshu was extremely exhausted after experiencing this series of events. Seeing him fall asleep and rest peacefully, Guji's heart, which had been in his throat, finally settled down. "Mr. Guji, let's go to another guest room to talk." "Well, okay." Dilu suggested to him after seeing that the visitor was fine and there was no danger. Guji nodded happily when he heard it. "Fang Zhu, I'm sorry to trouble you." Dilu turned to him and said, "Please help take care of him. I will send someone over later to take over your shift." Fang Zhu nodded indifferently when he heard it and said, "Well, okay." Chapter 218 Hitomi. After explaining everything, Dilu and Guji left the room one after another, leaving him alone to sit and watch over the people. Fangsu looked at Yanshu who was sleeping with his eyes closed, then sat down at the table, poured himself a glass of water, and looked out the window at the night sky and murmured, "Alas, I don't know what their situation will be like tomorrow." On the other side, that he couldn't see, at this moment, in the distant border town. Ding. Ding. Konoha was fighting with the rock ninja in the streets and alleys, fighting desperately for every important road in the town. Fire style, Phoenix fire technique. A handsome Konoha ninja with black hair and red eyes spit out fireballs from his mouth continuously and quickly, rushing towards several rock ninjas who were rushing on the street in front. Ha ha. Earth style returns. Seeing the fireballs coming, two rock ninjas jumped directly to the front of the team, slapped the ground with their hands, and a large stone slab flipped out in front of them, easily resisting the opponent's fire style attack. Bang, bang. Seeing that his fire escape attack didn't work, the man was at a loss, like a fool, and stood there motionless. Ha, what a... The rock ninjas who were attacking head on were amused by this, and were about to sneer at this kid in their hearts. Boom. Boom. Suddenly, a series of violent explosions sounded on both sides of their advance. How could this? At the moment, when the rock ninjas were about to be blown up, they all found incredulously that the kid was very panicked before, but at this moment, his face suddenly changed, and he actually grinned, revealing a weird smile. Damn. The rock ninjas were full of resentment, and with a flash of white light, they all disappeared in the roar. After the explosion, he walked forward slowly, finishing off 2 or 3 rock ninjas who were lucky enough not to be killed by the accidental explosion, muttering, "HMPH, what a bunch of idiots." Seeing how my little brat performs such lame and funny ninjutsu, they dare to be so blindly arrogant and underestimate the enemy. Really? Okay, Tong. A slightly hoarse girl's voice sounded behind him, interrupting and urging him, "If you have any nonsense, wait a minute, come to the back quickly." Oh. Upon hearing this, the boy immediately turned around and retreated, jumping back to his companions, scratching his head awkwardly. "Sorry, yep." When I saw that the enemy was so stupid, I couldn't help but think. I know. Ya gathered her messy and dry hair and smiled helplessly. "It's not the first day that I found out about your bad habit." Tong laughed awkwardly. Calculate the time, they will soon come to join us. Ya looked at the empty street behind him and murmured, and there were many wounded lying on the ground on both sides to rest. I don't know. Maybe Iwakuni and the others are still fighting hard. Tong rubbed her sore eyes. These damn Iwakuni. Just as Tong was about to continue to complain to Kiba about the Iwakuni. Swish, swish, swish. 3 figures with extremely fast speeds jumped to them one after another. Hey, you're finally here. Tong was very happy to see her companions running over to join her safely. She took out a small bottle from her arms and threw it to them. Catch it. Huh. Yanquan had just stood firm when he saw Tong throwing a small bottle to him. After catching it, he looked at it carefully and couldn't help but smile. You could actually still have Binglian pills. Hey, this is the last bottle. Tong yawned and said to him, it will be gone after you eat it. Yanquan poured 2 Binglian pills for himself and then handed the small bottle to Ren and the others. Next, Wu, Ren. Okay. Wu stretched out her slender hands to take the medicine bottle, poured 2 pills and swallowed them, and then passed it to Ren. I really don't know how long it will take to completely repel the invasion of Yannin. Ya said to everyone with full of worry. At present, except for them, only some small families in the local area have some people and horses, which can barely be mobilized to resist Yannin. Do your best and leave the rest to fate. Blade, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said something shocking. I believe that at the critical moment, there will be fresh troops airdropped into the town to rescue us. Huh. Wu looked at Blade in surprise when she heard this and shook her head speechlessly, complaining to him. You think too much. How is it possible? Hey, this is. Iwakuni wanted to defend Blade, but he had just said something. Oh no, the enemy is attacking. A shrill cry came from the left again. Clang, crack. Then, the roars of the 2 sides' magic battles followed one after another. Quick, everyone, get up. The ninjas of various families who were originally sitting quietly on the streets on both sides of the street to rest, all moved to their positions in an orderly manner amid the roar of magic, and rushed out to fight the enemy. Everyone. Kiba also said solemnly, after scanning several companions, let's go out quickly too. Okay. Everyone agreed, and together they followed Kiba to fight the Iwakuni. That night, Konoha's northern defenders were fighting desperately with Iwagakure to resist the invading enemy. At the core of the Land of Fire, Konoha village was now showing a prosperous and peaceful scene. Black gradually deepened over the village, and countless broken stars broke through the night sky and drilled out. A little moisture in the space slowly permeated the whole village. The half moon in the sky was tightly surrounded by a blue halo, which was very beautiful. Under the reflection of this layer of stars and moon, the corridors and halls of Konoha Hospital at this time seemed particularly quiet and deserted. In a ward on the 2nd floor, there was a haggard pink-haired girl, staring blankly and sadly at Sasuke lying on the bed. In this silence, it was unknown how long it had been. Sasuke, you will get better soon. The girl finally spoke and said to herself with concern to Sasuke, who closed his eyes and was unconscious, breaking the silence, then got up, walked to the side of his bed, and closed the window. It's almost time for the curfew. If I don't go back, my mother will be worried about me. The girl thought to herself, looking at Sasuke's thin face, and said apologetically, Sasuke, I have to go back today. I will come to see you tomorrow. She walked out of the ward with light steps, and then she closed the door carefully without making any noise, and left the hospital. Tap, tap. Not long after she left, the empty corridor suddenly heard the knocking of crutches, and someone was slowly approaching Sasuke's ward. After a while, a man with half of his face wrapped in bandages stood in front of Sasuke's bed. Swish, swish. How is it going? The man did not turn around, but asked the 2 masked ninjas who were half kneeling on the ground behind him. Chapter 219 Investigation. It's all sorted out, Master Danzo. One of them answered him respectfully, took out a file bag from his arms, and presented it with both hands. Just as he was about to explain the situation in detail, this is him executing. No need to tell me, Tanuki, I can read it myself. Thank you for your hard work. Danzo turned around and took the report from his hand without waiting for him to finish. Tanuki, who was half kneeling on the ground, stopped talking immediately when he heard Danzo say this and lowered his head again, waiting to listen to his next new instructions. Danzo took out the documents in the file bag, walked to the window, and browsed them in the moonlight for a long time. TSK. Danzo frowned and said in a rare muffled voice, I didn't expect this kid to do such a cruel thing when he was out on a mission alone. Indeed. Tanuki echoed Danzo's words respectfully. When we finished collecting intelligence, we also found it incredible what he did when he was out. After delivering the goods in the snow country, he almost destroyed a city alone, disguised himself and assisted Osamu Sentefu to overthrow the rule of Fukanuteo, and in the moon country, he helped the king quell the rebellion raised by Minister Sabadaba with lightning speed. Tanuki's companion also spoke at the right time, and said to Danzo, plus his performance this time, when the Atosaga coalition invaded Konoha, after a series of events, he was only about 14 years old, but he did so many impossible things. Nothing in this world is impossible. Danzo didn't think so. He shook his head and denied it. His eyes were particularly dark and charming under the moonlight, which made people frightened and dared not look at him. After a long time, he put the file back into the file bag and thought to himself, it seems that it is very necessary to eliminate him as soon as possible, otherwise, there will be endless troubles. Suddenly, Danzo glanced at Sasuke lying on the bed and snorted involuntarily. It's troublesome enough to have Uchiha Itachi alone. If Ito is added in the future. The fire was shining in the sky. At this moment, the border town had been mostly destroyed by the rock ninja. Can you still hold on? Tong's eyes, you looked at the rock fist standing on his right and asked with concern. No, it's almost the limit. Yan Quan put his hands on his knees, smiled bitterly and shook his head. Are these Yan ninjas crazy? They keep attacking us in waves. Hiss. Wu reluctantly pulled the kunai off his arm, took out his small medicine bottle from his arms, and swallowed a hemostatic pill. He also said unwillingly, damn it, I haven't even found a boyfriend yet, am I going to die here? Yap, who was beside Wu, raised his eyebrows speechlessly. Wu, are you focusing on the wrong point? That's right. Yan Quan echoed Yap and complained about her. You're only 12 years old, and you dare to spend so much. Don't be ridiculous, we are still good friends. Wu interrupted Yan Quan coldly and warned him. Just as they were chatting. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A series of shurikens rushed towards them quickly. Danger. Ding, ding, ding. After giving a loud warning, Blade instantly dodged and blocked in front of everyone, driving the ninja sword full of gaps, knocking away the shuriken that were attacking one by one. Really, the enemy hasn't been repelled yet, so stop chatting and come to help. He turned his back to the crowd and criticized them rarely. He put the ninja sword aside and raised his hand to make a seal. Lightning release. Earth walk. Crack. Crack. By slapping the ground with both hands, dense lightning was released, and it quickly swam to the right of the crowd, attacking the enemies running towards them. Get out of the way. The leading Iwagakure, seeing the lightning approaching, hurriedly shouted to remind his teammates to dodge. Swish, swish. Several people were forced to jump away from the lightning attack. Blade saw that he had successfully forced the enemy back and barely relaxed, standing there panting and wiping his sweat. Sorry, Blade. After Tong apologized awkwardly, he turned to Iwagakure and the others and said solemnly, everyone, disperse. Understood. Swish. In a flash, everyone disappeared without a trace. They all cooperated with each other to dodge and continued to grit their teeth and hold on, fighting against the rock ninja. On the other side of the town, Rockfist, Kurotsuchi shouted, and with lightning speed, he punched the Konoha ninja with a heavy punch. Crack. The thin ninja sword was instantly broken into two pieces by the heavy rock. Bang. The man was knocked far away and fell to the ground, unconscious. Seeing that the enemy was dealt with, Kurotsuchi removed the layer of rock on his hand, let out a long sigh, and wiped the thick sweat on his face. Then, when she was about to command the rock ninja standing on her left and right, everyone, whoosh, whoosh, Yato appeared just in time, with several seriously injured rock ninjas, and retreated to her. Ipok. Kurotsuchi looked at him puzzledly. Aren't you leading the team to attack the street defended by only 5 Konoha brats? They were beaten back. Ippoki shook his head and said without waiting for Kurotsuchi to finish, "When I led my men to the street defense line temporarily built by Konoha, I saw that there were only 3 people left in Konoha struggling to hold the defense line. I underestimated the enemy and blindly led my men to charge forward, trying to wipe them out in one fell swoop. Who would have thought that, just as we were about to get close, we were ambushed by the Konoha brats who were hiding very deeply on the left and right sides." What? She was speechless. So, we failed again. She had a headache. This is already the 4th wave, and we haven't even broken the defense line formed by those 5 brats. There's no way. Ippoki smiled bitterly. Those 5 brats have different chakra attributes and can complement and help each other. They are completely capable of both offense and defense and form a whole. He couldn't help but admire. It's very difficult to break it. Then who is leading the troops to attack Konoha in the front now? Kurotsuchi asked him. When I retreated, Shao had already organized the 5th wave of troops. I guess the 2 sides should have already fought each other. Ippo reasoned for her. Okay, I'll go over to help Xiaojian. Hearing this, Kurotsuchi said immediately. Kurotsuchi, this is not quite. Ippo saw that she was going over and wanted to object. Ippo, do you know how many casualties we have suffered in Iwagakure during the few days of invading the Land of Fire? Before Ippo could finish his persuasion, Kurotsuchi said to him with a serious face. I haven't really counted it. Ippo replied somewhat embarrassedly. I'll tell you honestly. Kurotsuchi sighed. In just these few short days, when you calculated that 20% of us were killed and 30% were seriously injured, which is almost half of the total number of troops invading the Land of Fire this time. What? Ippo couldn't believe it. So we have to capture this border town tonight, otherwise our troops, with no victory in sight, will become increasingly demoralized and have no will to continue fighting. After listening to her, he was silent. He had thought that Iwagakure would suffer heavy losses this time, but he had never expected that the casualty ratio would be so shocking in just a few short days. Chapter 220 Come Back Alive. After a long while, he finally figured it out helplessly, looked up at her and said, I still have to take care of them and go to the back for treatment. You have to be more careful and don't get hurt. It's such a kitsch. Don't worry, I know. Kurotsuchi waved his hand to interrupt him before he finished talking. As for the old man, even if he wants to blame me later, I will take the responsibility for it. Really? Ippo shook his head and led those people past Kurotsuchi. I'm leaving. Yeah. Kurotsuchi took advantage of the bright lights of the fire on both sides of the street, and after watching Ippo and the others evacuate, he set off with his men to rush to the hunting side. Ding. Ding. In front of the last izakaya in the border town that was not spread by the fire, Tong was helping other seriously injured Konoha ninjas to go in and rest. Wu waved the iron fan to attack the enemy, to buy time for his companions, and simultaneously cast a spell with one hand and shouted, wind style, breakthrough. After completing the seal, he blew out a strong wind from his chest. Whoosh. He blew away the 5 or 6 shuriken that were attacking him from the front and dropped them on the ground, making a ping pong sound. Bang. Just as Wu had forced a rock ninja to retreat, suddenly, swish, swish, rock ninjas appeared on both sides of him. Die. The two shouted at the same time, swinging their ninja swords left and right and slashing at Wu's neck. Clang, crack, ha. Rock fist and blade rushed to Wu's left and right in an instant, barely able to hold off the two enemies' ninja swords in time. In the midst of mutual roars, they fought desperately and entangled together, and the fight was inextricable. Whoosh, whoosh. Wu took this opportunity to quickly retreat behind Kiba. Are you okay, Wu? Kiba was also very tired, but she had no complaints, because compared to her at this time, Tong, Blade, and Rockfist were more tired. Hold on, hold on. Wu forced a smile. I didn't expect that the first time I went out on a mission with others without the accompaniment of a jonin, I would have to sacrifice my life for the village. You are blind. What nonsense are you talking about? Ya criticized her angrily and amusedly. Didn't you always complain to me that you would swear to find a boy who is more handsome than Sasuke to date? Panting, he teased Wu. Why, are you giving up now? Oh, I'm afraid in this life. Be careful. Suddenly, Tong shouted, and then the two were thrown to the ground by him without any explanation. Whoosh. Boom. Two oversized wind demon shurikens flew steadily and stabbed into the wall behind the two people, causing panic and exclamations from the old, weak, women and children in the house. Tong pulled the two of them up again. He looked at the still trembling Fuma shuriken and couldn't help but curse. Damn it. Sorry, Wu said to Tong ashamedly. I was just busy there. Hey, stop it. Tong stretched out his hand to stop her from talking. He didn't mind, but said with a very tired look, I'm glad you're all okay. Tong, let's take turns. Well, you still have to stay here and guard the door of the wine house. We are here to support you, so don't worry too much. Ya was about to suggest taking turns to fight with them, but was ignored and interrupted by Tong, which made her very angry. The old people and children in this house are now relying on us to hold on. Yap. Tong smiled and comforted Yap and did not forget to rub her head. Really? Wu curled her lips upon hearing this and hit him very rudely. Tong, if you don't change your bad habit of male chauvinism, you will never be able to find a girlfriend in the future. Hey, if it really becomes like that, I will find you then. Tong teased Wu. Get out of here. Wu laughed and scolded, but then restrained his smile and instead told his teammates with a deep and solemn face, Tong, don't die here. Wu is right. Ya echoed her words and slapped Tong's hand away. You still owe me a meal. He also said to him very seriously, we must go back together alive to have a big meal. Yeah, okay. Tong listened to them and just nodded silently and turned around, leaving a back view to them, and continued to step forward alone to support Blade and Rockfist who were fighting hard. Boom. Crack. Cough. Tong was just about to run to the two of them and saw Rockfist and Blade, blood spurting from their mouths. Both flew towards him. Blade, Rockfist, Kibba and Mei saw this from behind and called out to the two of them nervously. Boom, boom. Two heavy dull sounds rang out. Although Tong tried to catch them, she was also shaken back. What's going on? After standing still, Tong asked them in confusion. We were fine just now. You don't have to ask them. Just as Rockfist wanted to explain to Tong, the rock ninja on the opposite side strode out and came to the few people. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and said teasingly, your defense is made of paper. You can't even withstand a single blow from me. Damn it. Hearing the other party's ridicule, Tong found that Rockfist only gritted his teeth and cursed, but did not respond loudly as usual, and even Blade chose to remain silent. Hey, brother Karu. A faint voice came from behind. He did not turn around to look, but stared at the Konoha brats. He is very strong, not a ninja of the same level as the previous waves. Blade intent told Tong in a horrified tone. Even if the five of us fight this guy together, we have no chance of winning. His words were straightforward and easy to understand, which made Tong feel more pressured. Give up struggling. Xiao sneered, and his hands were not idle for a moment. He clenched his fists and prepared. Explosion style, landmine fist. He shouted and rushed over in an instant. Fire style, head. Tong saw him attacking and was about to make a seal and spit out a fireball from his mouth. Bang. Suddenly, a foot rose from under him and hit him hard in the abdomen. Puff. Tong's throat was sweet and the ninjutsu failed. Blood spurted out of his mouth and he took several steps back. Hitomi. Ya and Wu shouted for him in worry. Rockfist roared and threw a shuriken at Xiao who was about to rush to Tong. Bang. The moment the shuriken touched the enemy, Xiao turned into white smoke and disappeared. TSK, did he intend to use his clone to confuse us as a feint from the beginning? Blade thought to himself, blaming himself, and I didn't notice any clues. Damn it. Just as he was annoyed at his lack of strength. Bang, bang, Rockfist had stepped forward again and fought with Xiao. The punches and kicks between the two were extremely fast, changing so fast that it was hard to keep up and all the movements could not be seen clearly. I'll help you, Rockfist. Blade wanted to help. No, Blade, you should retreat to Yao and the others to help defend. Rockfist flatly rejected his proposal and urged him to retreat to the back. Chapter 221 Shan Shan arrives. After hearing this, Blade was silent for a long time. He turned around and looked at the Izakaya behind him. After thinking for a moment, he decided not to insist on fighting side by side with Rockfist, but to run back to Kiba and the others to help defend. The reason why he did this was because, just as Rockfist said, they were the only Konoha ninjas who were still able to protect the elderly, weak, women and children in the border town. After Blade left, the battle between Rockfist and Shao gradually became more intense. "Boy, your physical skills are not bad." Shao parried easily, but only praised him halfway, and said, Just what?" Rockfist subconsciously asked him. After hearing his question, Shao did not answer with a smile at the first time, but paused, suddenly changed his moves, and attacked very fiercely. Like Mind Fist. A white light suddenly flashed, and hit Rockfist very quickly. Bang! The white light flashed by, and with the roar of the explosion, the earth shook slightly. Blood gushed out of Yanquin's mouth, and he flew backwards towards the wine shop. His shirt was torn to pieces by the explosion, and although his body was not seriously injured, he fell unconscious. "Yanquin!" Several companions shouted at the same time, and Ren instantly moved close to him, and hugged him tightly, just as he was about to jump back to Yanquin and the others. Swish! Shao actually followed the flying Yanquin and quietly and swiftly followed the two of them. "Huh, you want to leave now?" He chuckled, and without waiting for their answer, he punched them hard. Ren saw Shao's fist approaching, but he didn't dare to dodge it easily. Yanquin had already fainted. If he jumped behind immediately, he could easily dodge this wave of attacks, but his companions would definitely die. "Forget it, let's die." Ren grinned in vain, just when he was mentally prepared to die in battle. Would release, thorn killing technique. Kala. Suddenly, several huge green woods broke out from the ground and tightly wrapped around Shao's shoulders. TSK, could this be that guy? Shao was stunned at first, but then he quickly reacted and slapped his hands crosswise. The wooden shackles tied to his shoulders, bang, bang, exploded. Wood chips flew everywhere. Shao immediately jumped back, pulling away from Rockfist and Blade. Whoosh, whoosh. Blade was pulling back with Rockfist and just looked up and saw several identical figures quickly shuttled out from the gaps in the fire and fought with Shao. In addition, there was a man with a ninja sword hanging on his waist, standing in front of the izakaya where Mei and the others were. "Sorry to have kept you waiting," the man said, after making sure that there was no obstacle around. "Who are you?" This time, the village has newly sent a patrol team to the northern border. "My name is Bayan." Wu and him had a brief question and answer, and she figured out who the visitor was. Great, Mizuno really brought back reinforcement. Wu was a little excited and lost her composure. Her hands unconsciously clenched the iron fan because they had been waiting for too long and had been isolated and helpless until now. We were in our own defense zone. We had just repelled the invasion of the Rock Ninja. When we were patrolling the periphery, we accidentally ran into your companions. We received an emergency call for help from your town and rushed here immediately. Thank you, Senior Yishan. No. Yishan stopped and drew the ninja sword from his waist. If you have anything to say, it's not too late to say it after we repel them. Okay. Wu just nodded. At this moment, multiplication technique. A loud shout suddenly sounded behind the Rock Ninja. There was a big man who expanded at a high speed without the enemies noticing. In just half a cup of tea, his body had grown so huge that people could only look up at him in fear. Oh no, it's Konoha's reinforcement. How could he become so huge? Quick, get out of the way. Unfortunately, before the Iwagakure ninjas could evacuate safely, the strong man roared and swung his equally giantized weapon, sweeping straight towards the Iwagakure ninjas below. Everyone, get out of the way. Just as the weapons were approaching from above, and the Iwagakure ninjas were panicking, Kurotsuchi suddenly raised his voice and shouted, "Don't all crowd together, form groups of 3, and evade in all directions, quick." After Kurotsuchi's calm and loud reminder, many Iwagakure ninjas recovered from their brief panic, quickly pulled their companions around them, put together temporary groups, and evaded in all directions. Boom. Although their movements were fast enough, there were still a few unlucky ones who were inevitably swept by his weapon. They screamed and fell into the burning houses in the town. Ah! They wailed and injured the burning, which shocked everyone who heard it. The rock ninjas who had listened to Kurotsuchi before decisively adopted the strategy of breaking up the whole into parts, reducing their losses to the lowest point, and were about to counterattack Konoha. But at this moment, swish, swish, suddenly, many clones similar to Mingshin appeared from the left and right sides of the rock ninjas to help Konoha resist the fight. Ding. Damn it. Xiao glanced at the situation of the troops at this time. They were turned upside down by the intruding giant and the piles of wooden clones, and were about to withdraw and turn back to deal with them. Whoosh. Xiao reacted very quickly and avoided the quick attack from the side. Your opponent is me. Yishan smiled at him calmly. Damn it. Xiao had to take out a shuriken to block the attack. The metals clashed with each other, making a ping pong sound, and the two sides were entangled in a very difficult fight. Swish, swish, woo, look. Ya raised his hand and pointed at her. At this time, two more Konoha ninjas landed in the air. You are. Tong stood up from the ground, endured the pain, and looked up at the other's back, and was about to say sincerely, "Thank you, senior." Senior? Tong had just expressed his gratitude to the other person, but the other person asked himself a question in a very suspicious manner after hearing his voice. Tong also felt that the voice was very familiar after hearing it, and had a bad premonition in his heart. Who is this voice? He took the initiative to turn around, and after letting Tong see the person clearly, he was suddenly stunned on the spot. The two exclaimed at the same time. Although the other person was also speechless, after seeing Tong at first, he immediately asked him with a very obscene grin, "Hey, did you just call me senior? TSK. Tong's face flushed red when he heard it, and he argued, "You bastard ears heard it wrong. What's going on?" The other person looked at the two of them and felt confused about the matter. "Well, Ebisu, I'm familiar with this guy, actually. Stop talking nonsense tomorrow." Tong scolded him, "I'm familiar with you, eh?" Ebisu raised his eyebrows when he heard him say that, and looked at them suspiciously through his sunglasses. Chapter 222 Pay back the money. You're not familiar with me? Mingshin smiled and turned his face serious, stretched out his hand, and said to Tong in a bad mood, "Oh, okay, pay me back, Question mark? Yao and Wu stood there in a daze. When they heard his words of asking for a debt, their brains didn't turn around for a while. They looked at each other and thought, what's going on? Ren also approached with a puzzled look, staring at the two of them. You fart." Tong turned his face and pointed at his nose and cursed, "When did I owe you a turtle? Yo, I don't know which beast it was last time." After treating teammates to a big meal and a big drink in a restaurant on Siding Street, he realized that he didn't bring. "Well, Mingshin, you and the others can come to help us so promptly." Before he finished speaking, Tong suddenly stepped forward and hugged him tightly. "That's great. Question mark? Ebisu and Ren were all stunned watching Tong's performance. They were mortal enemies a second ago, but in the blink of an eye, the two of them became like brothers with deep feelings. It was very dazzling. When did Tong become so close to him? Yao and Mei looked at each other. What the hell are they doing? Hey, I say, that's enough. Two grown men hugging each other. What the hell is going on? Being slapped on the back by Tong, Mingshan pushed him away with a cold face and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "If you have this kung fu show, you might as well save some chakra and concentrate on dealing with the rock ninja." "Humph." Tong retorted without showing any weakness. "If you weren't such a wicked seaweed head, would I need to perform for them?" Bang. Crack. Just as the two of them were arguing with each other, the clones that had besieged Chao were easily exploded and solved by him, and wood chips flew all over the ground. Yishan was very good at seeing the right moment, and he entered the field with momentum and attacked quickly. Soon, the battle between him and Chao became increasingly intense. Explosion style, landmine fist. Chao took advantage of a brief gap when Yishan showed a flaw, and instantly punched him in the vitals. Bang. At the moment of contact, Yishan's body was exploded into pieces of dark green leaves, with small flames burning on them. TSK, leaf substitute technique. Xiao frowned and glanced around, suddenly sensing behind his waist. I succeeded. Whoosh. Just as Yishan was about to chop into Xiao's waist with his ninja sword, Akaji suddenly appeared and forcibly avoided this attack with his fist. Clang. A crisp metal collision sounded, and the symphony passed by. What a pity. Yishan turned back regretfully, pulling away from them and confronting them. Kaito, why are you here? Xiao looked at him, very surprised. Aren't you on the other side? When Ya wanted me to come over to you to get reinforcement, to reinforce his front line. Kaito smiled bitterly. I didn't expect that you also. Hasn't the progress on your side been smooth? Xiao was puzzled. What happened? That's right, we were originally going to follow the original plan and advance the main force to your side to join us. Kaito pointed at Qianshan, but this guy actually conjured up hundreds of wooden clones, airborne, and appeared on both sides of the street, madly attacking us. What did you say? Xiao turned his eyes in surprise and looked at Qianshan. Hey, did you miss me, Xiao? After noticing his gaze from afar, Qianshan actually took the initiative to reach out and greet him loudly. TSK, this annoying wouldn't fly. Xiao was very angry and was about to set off to find Qianshan to settle the score, but Yishan was very tactless and dodged in front of him. Get out of here. Do you think it's possible? Humph. The two of them started fighting again. Seeing this, Kaito was about to cast a spell to assist. Swish. Fire style, great fireball technique. A fireball attacked from the side of him, carrying a blazing high temperature impact. Seeing the fireball approaching, Kaito quickly spit out a lot of yellow earth from his mouth, solidifying it into a wall to resist. Bang! The fireball hit his wall directly, and it burned for a long time before stopping. Kaito removed the earth wall, and saw the little man in sunglasses looking at him head on. Your opponent is me. The person who came was Ebisu. Kaito didn't say anything, just shouted and went forward to fight with him. Boom. Bang. Yishan's body movements were extremely fast. Whenever Xiao's fist was about to get close to him during the fight, he would immediately turn into a leaf to avoid the explosive attack, making it impossible for him to hit him, but also unable to shake it off. Tong, it's time to work. Mingshan poked him with his elbow, looking at the battlefield, and reminded him, you help me cover. After that, without waiting for him to say anything in reply, he raised his hand and began to make seals. Hey, why should I help? Tong was about to refute and complain, but was stopped by Ren's hand. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes made it clear. TSK. Seeing that his teammates were also signaling him to help cover, Tong was helpless and had to wave his sword and stand beside Mingshan with his nose pinched. Would release, multiple would clone technique. In the blink of an eye, clones with the same appearance continued to split from Mingshan's back, and soon, they all stood in a row. Whoosh, whoosh. After receiving the order from the original, they scattered and attacked, either taking advantage of the chaos to join the group of clones fighting with the Rock Ninja, or circling around Kari and Akatsuki in twas and threes, waiting for an opportunity to besiege them, and some of them directly sneaked past them and went straight to Kurotsuchi to attack. Boom. Crack. The giants behind the Rock Ninja troops always made the ground shake and sway every time they swung their weapons to attack. TSK, this is not a solution. Kurotsuchi was directing everyone to dodge the attack of her weapons, while at the same time she was instructing several groups to wait for an opportunity to move around the giant. Come here, all of you. Kurotsuchi retreated, and while the others were holding back the giant's movements, she called the two groups of rock ninjas beside her and said. After hearing this, the two groups beside her wanted to continue to attack the giant, but now they had to stop, thinking, Lady Kurotsuchi, what is this? Although they didn't know what she was going to do, they still approached her with suspicion, and saw her making gestures, and whispering to everyone, you guys will disperse and perform. Bang, bang. After Kurotsuchi briefly explained the combat steps she designed, she looked around with a serious expression. Everyone, do you understand? Yeah, I roughly understand. Okay, disband now and start the action. Yes. Swish, swish. The two groups of people instantly dispersed, each looking for other lone rock ninjas, and after a brief communication, they began to organize in an orderly manner. HMM. Gradually, the giant also found that there were fewer and fewer rock ninjas under his feet, as if they all disappeared in the blink of an eye. Just when he was puzzled, suddenly, today, some incorrect content statements in yesterday's chapter 221 have been adjusted. In addition, special thanks to Killer One's Oldic for his recommendation vote today. Chapter 223 Group Battle. Earth Escape Earthridge. Whoosh, whoosh. Several different roars sounded at the same time in the northwest and southeast of him, followed by a thick rock that required 2 or 3 people to lift up. It flew straight out and spun desperately in the air, pressing down on him. Bang, bang, bang. Although the giant quickly smashed the 2 rocks, before he could react, several waves of rock ninjas suddenly rushed out, scattered far away and surrounded him, quickly forming seals with their hands and shouting, "Earth Escape Earthquake Core." Amid the roars of the crowd, they slapped the ground hard from 4 different directions. Boom. Crack. Several loud noises vibrated over, and they controlled the land within a certain range under the giant's feet, causing it to fall down. What? The giant was surprised to follow the ground, shaking and sinking, thinking, not good, they are going to trap me directly below, and prevent me from moving my body. He gritted his teeth and directly released the multiplication technique to shrink his body. Whoosh, whoosh. In a few moves, he quickly jumped out of the huge pit. He's there. As soon as his feet landed, a careful rock ninja discovered him, and immediately called on the others around him, swarming up and attacking him. TSK, there's nothing I can do. Just as he was ready to fight many rock ninjas alone, Uncle Ding Zeduo, I'll help you. On his left side, Ming Shan's voice came out. Swish, swish. Ding Zeduo turned his head and saw a large group of Ming Shan who looked exactly the same, running towards him at a high speed. Hey, this kid. Ding Zeduo smiled, then retracted his sight, swung his weapon, shouted, and rushed into the rock ninjas to attack. Ding, ding. Ding Zeduo's moves were fierce and vigorous. Anyone who fought with him in close combat would be knocked down in less than 2 rounds. Whoosh, whoosh. Seeing that Ding Zeduo began to charge into the enemy group and start fighting, the many clones of Ming Shan were not to be outdone and accelerated their approach. Seeing that many clones were approaching, several rock ninjas joined forces to form seals, Earth style, Earth spear, and slap the ground. Crack, crack. Many sharp rock cones pierced straight out from the ground and rushed towards the oncoming clones. Crack, clang. Many clones were hit in a straight line and were directly pierced and faded into a wooden state. TSK. Some clones who were lucky enough to escape the disaster, in view of this, reacted very quickly and gathered together. Before the new round of Earth Spears arrived, they also raised their hands to cast seals and shouted together, Wood style, Sea of Trees Birth. They use their chakras to combine together and use it as an energy circulation to activate this ninjutsu. The wooden clones gathered together and roared in unison. When the Earth Spears were only half a step away from them, crack. The ground began to grow branches and leaves like crazy. Crack, crack. The sound of the trees growing rapidly resounded throughout the battlefield, and even Shao and Akaji, who were fighting a deadly battle with the Konoha ninja in front, were startled and turned their heads to look. The power of the wood release displayed by these clones was far inferior to that of the original, but the quantity was not inferior at all. Crack. The earth spear that was originally going to drill in front of the clones was restrained without any suspense in front of the wildly growing and spreading thick vines and branches, and had no place to use it. Damn it. Heitu gnashed his teeth when he heard the sound of the trees growing under the ground, which was full of vitality. He couldn't do anything about the seaweed head. He was simply helpless and secretly regretted. If I had known it would be like this, I should have urged Shao to kill this guy, even if it meant both sides would suffer losses. Looking at this flexible and changeable green python, he was helpless. Tomorrow, the rest of the clones, under the cover of this lush green sea, looked at each other and nodded, and quickly dispersed, and then they all started to move. Lord Kurotsuchi, what should we do now? A rock ninja who ran over from her side asked anxiously. What should we do? Kurotsuchi shook her stiff arms and neck. What else can we do? We should attack together. She frowned, stared at the front angrily, and said, I really don't believe that so many of us can't deal with Seaweed Head and these wooden clones. You go and inform them clearly, and everyone should attack together. Yes. After receiving a clear order, he immediately rushed to the troops to convey it. Soon, everyone took out their weapons one by one. Except for the rock ninjas who were fighting with Ding Zeduo, the rest all ran at full speed towards the oncoming Konoha clones. Whoosh, whoosh. The two groups of people collided with each other in an instant, like two violent torrents colliding. It was obviously a small-scale battle, but it seemed like a battle on the battlefield in the old days, roaring at each other and attacking the enemy. Boom. Bang. In just a moment, Mingshan's many clones were completely entangled with the rock ninja. Kurotsuchi was among them. His hands instantly transformed into rock fists, and he kept attacking. The rear troops of the rock ninja also began to fight like the front, in the flames burning all over the border town. Yao and Mei stood at the door of the izakaya, looking at this thrilling scene from afar, and they both felt incredible. It turns out that the clones can be operated and used in this way. Yao felt that Mingshan had refreshed his understanding of the use of ninjutsu, and said to Mei, don't ask me. Mei hit her forehead hard with the iron fan, and shouted in pain, it hurts. Woo, what are you doing? I want to make sure I'm not dreaming now. Woo smiled bitterly, pulled Ya's hand that was full of cuts from the rock ninja kunai, and guided her to look at Mingshan. Do you still recognize that guy? Come on, why not? Who then? Mingshan? Are you sure it's the otaku, Ito Mingshan, who we knew in school? What exactly do you want to say, Woo? Ya shook her head quickly, saying that she couldn't stand it. She was so incoherent and hard to figure out. Just say it, if you have something to say. When I was in the ninja school, I didn't even know, until now, that this guy's the bloodline limit ninja in our village. Woo sighed. Look at us, we have been fighting for so long, and the ninjas of those small families in the town have been basically consumed by the rock ninjas, with heavy casualties. She raised her hand and pointed at him. This damn guy, he just came to the border town not long ago, and he used wood release to help us reverse the situation in a few seconds. Isn't it infuriating? Ya was speechless when she heard her complaining about Mingshan, because Woo was not wrong, so she didn't know what to say in return. The real strength that Mingshan showed tonight really made her feel unbelievable. This is completely different from the guy she usually meets in the village, the loser who is always unmotivated and only thinks about doing things that are not presentable. This is the first time I have written a detailed description of a large-scale battle. It is not very good, or even very lame. I will try to improve the way I write about large-scale battles in the future. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, Akaji Takanori. Yep, Woo saw that Ya didn't refute what he said, so he pulled her. She suddenly came to her senses and responded to Woo. What's wrong? Let's talk. I'll go call Ren over now. Woo said to her seriously. Why are you looking for him? Ya asked her subconsciously. Let Ren come to help guard outside, so that we can use seaweed head to buy us this precious time, and quickly go into the house and give some simple treatment to the wounded. Woo nodded with a smile. Hey. Yajing was embarrassed by her reminder and smiled bitterly. I really am. Okay. Woo didn't intend to spend time listening to her self-blame. I'll be back soon. Yeah. Okay. Ninjutsu. Heart Ranang Bujutsu. Hey. What are you doing? My body is out of control. Asshole, take the knife. Stop it. Hey Yi, who had been cruising on the battlefields at both ends and moving flexibly, took advantage of Mingshan's clones to cover him and continued to secretly use the secret techniques of the Yamanaka clan everywhere, causing the Chengpian rock ninja to suddenly hold weapons and attack each other inexplicably. Oh, it's really thanks to Mingshan's clones to help, otherwise. Be careful to the left. Heiyi was about to praise Mingshan in his heart, but heard a shout from behind, and hurriedly jumped sideways. Whoosh! A knife cut into the air. Damn it. Seeing that the sneak attack failed, a rock ninja was about to raise his leg to evacuate. Puff! Then a sharp sword, with a bone-chilling coldness, suddenly pierced through his chest. Under the reflection of the fire, the tip of the blade shone with silver stars, and blood kept dripping down. Ouch. The rock ninja looked down in disbelief and glanced at the sword wound on his chest. Bang! The next second, he was kicked hard from behind and fell forward to the ground. He didn't struggle at all and died on the spot. Boom. Hey Yi landed on the ground in a dull voice and ran to the clone who was wiping the blood on the corpse, staring at the battlefield and urging, "Don't wipe it, let's go." "Oh, okay." The clone stood up after hearing this and shook his arms. "Let's continue to wander, Uncle Hey." "Yeah. This guy, when did he become?" Tong was staring at Mingshan in a daze while thinking about it. Swish. "Tong, what are you doing?" Tong heard Wu's voice and was awakened from her long trance. She turned around and asked, "Why are you here?" "I'm here to find Ren." "Looking for me?" Ren heard her and pointed at himself, wondering, "What do you want me to do?" "Now we need you to help me and Yatta guard the door of the wine house." Wu put away her iron fan. "Let's go into the house and give those injured people as much simple treatment as possible." "Is that so?" "Okay." Ren nodded in agreement and then said to Tong, "I'm leaving." "Hey, you're leaving? Why did you tell me?" "Nothing." Tong looked at Ren in silence, not knowing how to complain about him. TSK. Wu couldn't help but chuckle. "Hey, what are you laughing at again?" Tong was even more depressed when she saw her like this. "Oh, okay, I won't laugh." Wu quickly restrained herself. "Ren, take Yanquan with you and come with me." "Okay." Ren nodded. After they finished talking, they lifted up Rockfist and walked towards the pub. TSK, you're talking halfway. What a joke. Tong muttered dissatisfiedly, "How can you play dumb like this?" After complaining for a few sentences, he turned his head and looked at Mingshan who was still creating wooden clones. Pop. Suddenly, there was a sound of pulling, and Mingshan loosened his hands tremblingly and knelt on the ground. He was actually a little dizzy and about to fall down. "Hey." Tong saw this and quickly supported him. "Cheer up. You're still so useless." Tong gently supported him and didn't forget to complain, "It's a waste to give you wood release. TSK, why don't you try to use it like me?" Mingshan panted and said to Tong contemptuously, "It's easy to talk when you're standing. Come on, what should we do now?" Tong asked as he poured out 2 Binglian pills from the medicine bottle in his arms and swallowed them. "You go deal with that oversized Akaju Takanori in red." Mingshan straightened his back and shook his hands and feet. "I'll go help Captain Hayama." Akaju Takanori? Tong was a little confused. "Who are you talking about?" Mingshan saw him looking at him blankly and responded awkwardly, "Well, who do you care who he is?" Pointing at Akaji who was fighting with Ebisu. "Just beat this guy down." Tong raised his eyebrows and looked at him speechlessly. "Why are you still standing there?" Mingshan urged guiltily, "Hurry up and work." TSK. Tong rolled her eyes at him in annoyance and then ran straight over to help Ebisu cut people. "Finally got rid of this guy." Mingshan sighed. Next, he also drew the Kusanagi sword from his waist, looking at Hayama and Kari who were fighting fiercely. "It's time to settle new debts and old accounts together." Swish. He dodged and jumped away, attacking the place where they were fighting. Bang. Crack. After destroying the last wooden clone, Xiao moved to the ground behind him. "Want to run?" Yishan chased after him. HMPH. Earth style. Earth flowing river. Xiao quickly formed a seal, slid backwards, and the mud turned into liquid and flowed in a straight line. Wow. Wow. The Earth River carried Xiao and wandered around, making it difficult for Yishan to get close to attack. TSK, this ninjutsu. Yishan frowned, and after trying to attack several times, he jumped back to distance himself from him. Just when he felt it was difficult to target Xiao, "Captain Yishan." Mingshan's voice sounded from behind him at the right time. Turning his gaze, "Mingshan." "Yes, I'm coming." Mingshan accelerated and flashed to the right side of Yishan, looking at Xiao who was standing on the Earth River in front of him, and asked, "What's the situation, Captain?" "My strength is comparable to his. It's hard to tell the winner in a short time." Yishan analyzed sternly. "This guy is very strong." "Indeed." Mingshan followed his words and looked over. After a moment of silence, he said, "Captain, I'll help too." TSK, it's this kid. Xiao saw Mingshan whispering with Yishan and knew there was trouble. TSK, if it's just an ordinary genin, I don't mind a few more, but if this guy joins forces with that ponytail ninja. Thinking of this, he raised his head decisively, stopped the flow of the Earth River, and whoosh. Continue to retreat. "Hey, what is this guy doing? Is he?" Ming-Shan saw Xiao's posture and realized that he was going to run away, so he said anxiously, "Oh no, Captain, that Iowa ninja." Chapter 225, Withdrawal. Without his reminder, Yi-Shan also saw it and said directly, "Chase." Understood. Whoosh, whoosh. The two of them accelerated instantly and chased after the rock ninja. After Xiao blew up the two wooden clones he met on the road, he saw them chasing him from the corner of his eye. He raised his hand and made a seal calmly, shouting, "Earth escape, yellow spring swamp." Hiss. Hey, what is this? Suddenly, a large area under Ming-Shan and Yi-Shan's feet turned into a liquid form, trapping them deeply in it and unable to move easily. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" Ming-Shan shouted at him dissatisfiedly. "Heh, kid, I'll find a chance to kill you next time." Xiao didn't look back. After saying this, he made a circle with his hands and put them in his mouth, pressing his tongue with his knuckles. Whoosh! Exclamation mark. After hearing the whistle, many rock ninjas who were fighting hard at the scene realized in their hearts, "Is this an order for us to retreat?" Although a large number of people were hesitant and did not easily evacuate, they followed closely behind and retreated quickly after Xiao blew loudly. Tong, who had just arrived at the place where Ebisu and Akagi were fighting, suddenly heard the sound of wind behind him. His heart was beating fast. There is danger. He immediately made a judgment and dodged to the side. The punch hit the air. Kid. Xiao looked at Tong, who was narrowly avoided by him and did not intend to entangle with him or kill the kid, but ran straight to Akagi. When Tong was about to warn Ebisu, Xiao had already turned to their side and suddenly, unexpectedly, he swung his palm and hit Ebisu's back fiercely. Bang. The white smoke dissipated, and after the loud noise, a large piece of wood was shattered by it. A substitute technique? Xiao stood beside Akagi with disdain, looking at Ebisu who had already run far away, but was still panting with lingering fear, and couldn't help but teasing. "Your reaction is quite smart." I almost thought I was dead. Ebisu wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, secretly sighed at his quick reaction just now. "Thanks to my diligent practice in daily life. Let's go, Akagi," Xiao said to Akagi. Why? Akagi looked at him puzzled when Xiao said this. "This invasion has completely failed," Xiao said helplessly, having to face the reality. "Now the troops have lost too much. Even if we continue to fight, it is meaningless." Akatsuki was silent after hearing this. He quickly glanced at everything around him. It was indeed as Xiao said. "Xiao, you go and take Kurotsuchi and the others to evacuate. I'll go and notify Wen Yao and the others to retreat." "Okay." Xiao nodded, and the two began to act separately. Swish, swish. After the two ran away, Ebisu and Tong, who had been standing still, looked at each other awkwardly. They seem to have retreated. Really? Then, should we chase them? Well, should we chase them? Can we win? No, they are two Jonin, and I'm just a Genin. That's right, then we should. Just when Ebisu and Tong were about to find reasons to give up the pursuit. Whoosh, whoosh. Hayama and Ming-Shan were covered in mud and chased after them. "Hey, what the hell are you two doing?" Ming-Shan asked in confusion, watching them standing there motionless, as if they were discussing something. When the two heard Ming-Shan's question from behind, they quickly shook their bodies, with a tense face, bowed in a serious manner, and breathed heavily at the same time in a very tacit manner. Swish. Hayama and the others came in front of Ebisu and Tong, and saw that the two looked very exhausted. Subconsciously, they judged that the two were so tired, because of trying to stop the Iwagakure. They said with shame, "Sorry, we came too late, and let the Iwagakure." "It's okay, Hayama-senpai." Ebisu gave up and said nonchalantly, "This is because we are not capable enough, and it has nothing to do with Hayama-senpai." "Yes, Mr. Ebisu is right." Tong echoed Ebisu's nonsense with a wonderful expression on her face. Ming-Shan looked at them suspiciously and asked subconsciously, "You guys are not because of the fight?" "Hey, Mr. Ebisu, look." Tong suddenly interrupted, pointed to the battlefield, and said righteously, "Let's go over there to support." "Yeah, you are right." Ebisu nodded tacitly. Swish, swish. Without waiting for Yishan and Mengshan to say anything else, they each ran and jumped away to support others. Ebisu and the others are really great. They are indeed excellent ninjas in the village. Yishan sighed and turned to Mengshan and said, "You should learn more from them." Mengshan was speechless when he heard the captain say this and secretly complained in his heart, "Learn nothing. They can only fool you, and no one will believe it." Of course, he did not refute this in person, and it was not appropriate to talk about this at this time. "Let's hurry over to support others, Mengshan," Yishan urged directly after sighing. "Okay." Mengshan put aside his complaints about the two of them, put away his good intentions, and followed the captain to the battlefield to fight. Bang, crack. In the back, Hita smashed another wooden clone completely. Boom. Before the clone completely faded into a wooden state, she immediately kicked it out quickly to avoid being entangled by accident. "This damn wouldn't fly." Kurotsuchi wiped the sweat from his forehead and cursed him in a low voice. Where did this guy get so much chakra? He actually split and created so many astonishing wooden clones. Is he a Jinkriki? No. A voice of Gushi came from the front of her and answered, "That guy is definitely not a Jinkriki." When yap, Akaji. She looked at the two people who appeared in front of her. "Why are you here? It's time to retreat." Kurotsuchi. What? Kurotsuchi heard them say this as soon as they met, and it was a little hard to accept. Why should we retreat? Now we just need to take over the room in front. No chance, Kurotsuchi. When Ya sighed, "We suffered too much loss in this invasion just to break through the border in front of us." Damn it. Kurotsuchi didn't have the patience to wait for Wenya to finish his story and said hatefully, "After fighting for so many days, are we just going to give up and retreat back to the land of Earth? If we don't retreat, the casualties will be even greater." Akaji also persuaded her at this time. "There is a long way to go. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future, Kurotsuchi." After their patient persuasion, Kurotsuchi was forced to agree to obey for the sake of the overall situation. She also made a circle with her hands and put them in her mouth and blew the same whistle as Shao, commanding the troops to evacuate. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.